Got a big idea but not sure where to start? Shopify makes it easy. From stunning templates to AI tools that write your product descriptions and boost your marketing, Shopify helps you build, sell, and grow fast. It's trusted by millions, from startups to brands like Gymshark and Mattel. And with 24/7 support, you're never on your own. Turn your dream into with Shopify. Start your $1 a month trial today at shopify.com/dax. That's shopify.com/dax.
Hey guys, welcome back to another Weird Wednesday. I'm Asherz, and this is
Tobias.
And also
Adam,
welcome back.
thanks for having me.
I'm excited to have you here. I always say that to everybody. I'm always so excited about everyone. I think people are going to start believing that I'm faking it.
You should start saying you're welcome when people say thanks for having me.
You know, that would probably be the not rude thing.
Like, you're welcome.
Sincerely.
Yeah.
I'm stoked to have you here. This is a topic this episode that you suggested yourself, and I thought it would just be a good idea to have you on to help go over that topic. I know it's something that you know a little bit about.
Very little, but I learned a lot today.
We are going to learn much more thanks to our English expert Tobias Whalen. So it'll be
Resident fairy master.
Yeah, my degree in fucking English actually came with a minor in fairies. So
I believe that. Yeah, I believe that about
I've
you.
seen that. I've actually seen that degree hanging on his wall. Like, it's true. It just says fucking fairies on there.
yeah.
And it's nice frame, everything. Pretty cool.
Right next to fucking English. I love it. That's
Yeah, like people think it's weird to frame a bachelor's degree, but you know what? Fuck them. They don't have a degree in fairies.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think you would make the rules here, you know. So I don't blame you one bit. But before we get into all that fun stuff, let's go over our weekends. Tobias, how was your weekend?
Oh boy, I had quite a weekend. I actually spent most of my weekend hanging out with our guest today. We
Oh.
I swear to God. Yeah. We went hiking with our wives out in the Kettle Moraine State Forest on Saturday evening, and that was a lot of fun. You know, that's an area that we touched on last week when we were talking about Wisconsin dogman sightings, and it is an area that is renowned for that type of phenomenon, in addition to Bigfoot sightings and anomalous balls of light and even some winged humanoids. So it was always a good time going out there. And last Saturday was no different. You know, I had a chance to try out my new thermal cam that I got, which worked pretty well. Yeah, I mean, I didn't get any dogman or anything on it, but I did record a rabbit, and
Nice.
I know that doesn't. I know it's not the sexiest fucking thing ever, but it is super fun because I couldn't see the rabbit, but like the thermal cam could see it. So it was just cool to see how it worked and then to see the possibilities. Like if there's something hiding in the brush, that camera will find it. So it's nice to have that in the bag of investigative tools that I have. So otherwise, you know, it wasn't a super I should say the trip itself wasn't full of the type of phenomena I think that we have grown accustomed to out in the kettle, although there was a couple of weird incidents where we were sort of followed by a strange smell. And I know that sounds fucking weird, but it's a thing that happens out there. And you'll encounter this smell that just kind of smells like death, really. And it can also be accompanied by a change in temperature, like if the environment just suddenly gets a little warmer. I first encountered it in February. I want to say 2018, the first time Emily and I went out there with our friend Jay, and and we were basically being followed by this rotten smell, and which was bizarre because it defied the current climate and weather, right? Like it didn't make sense because it was moving kind of against the wind at times. And so we couldn't really figure out what its source was. Now, of course, people talk about cryptids smelling
Mhm.
bad, especially when you start talking about Dogman and Bigfoot and all of that stuff, right? People talk about this very rancid odor that can accompany them. And so, you have to consider, I think, if maybe that is part of it, if those things might be related given the reputation of that area. But I didn't see a dog man or a Bigfoot or anything like that, so I don't really know. But it's interesting. And then on Sunday we went to the gun range, which was also a lot of fun, and I shot a target a bunch of times, so many times.
And
Well,
then we went
congratulations.
and we got food and delicious ham sandwich, and the day was just wonderful.
Ham
It
sandwiches
was delightful. Yes.
make for a good day for sure. Adam, did you smell the anomalous smell?
Yeah, it kind of to go back what Tobias was saying. Like we've been out in the kettle together um, quite a few times,
Tons of
and
times.
the way I like how we do that when we go out there, it's a relatively small group, maybe no more than like 4 people the most times we go. I personally like the approach that we take. It's, we're out there, we're hiking around, but it's not like dead set. We're doing like experiments and doing testing and stuff. Like we are actually just walking. We're just putting
Sure.
ourselves out there. We're just walking, but we're taking note if, anything is weird, if anything is. So it's not like we're getting hyper focused to find something. And, so we're just going about it. Um, we were probably out there for what, 2 hours when this happened, coming around 2 hours.
Yeah,
Um,
I think so.
sun was down. It was pretty dark out, and just walking along the path, taking note of, all the animals going around, looking at different like frogs and mice and stuff, that rabbit, kind of testing out the thermal camera, talking, joking around. But all of a sudden, this smell just hit, and it hit with such a force that it actually like stopped us mid like hike, and it's kind of like, whoa, like does anyone smell that? But it was accompanied by a extremely noticeable difference in temperature, where it wasn't like the smell was on the wind type of thing. It's like the the smell and the heat were one and the same thing. And it wasn't like super windy out there. It wasn't even really breezy out there. And the smell came from like the right side. And all of a sudden it dissipated just as quickly as it showed up. And of course, we stood there. Um, Tobias immediately got the thermal out and was scanning around. I had a flashlight. Um, Emily and my wife, they were behind us, and they had their flashlight, and we were all just kind of looking. And the smell went away, and it was like, that was really weird. And we were describing it, and we went up a few feet more, started to hike again, and then the smell hit again, but this time it came from the left side of us. And again, it wasn't windy, so it's not kind of like, oh, there's something dead nearby, and we're just in this cross path of this wind. Like it was a very strange type of smell in the way that we noticed it, and then it went away again, and it didn't come back. But it was one of those moments where you're just kind of like, you experience it, and you know that it's weird enough to like make you stop and think about what it could be, but it's not weird enough to be like, oh, that's a Bigfoot or that's a dogman or something like that, where you're hyping yourself up for it to be. It was just a very an odd occurrence that we had to think about it for a minute just to make sure everyone was smelling it. Everyone could feel the change in temperature. Um, don't know what it was though. No idea.
Sure. That's always unfortunate, right? The mystery. Mysterious smells is a topic that has been entering my life a lot lately. So, I mean, call it a synchronicity if you want to, but very odd that you guys experienced that because this past weekend I did not experience an anomalous smell, but a lot of people were kind of talking about it, and it's just not something I've ever really focused on. So, I guess I've got research to do. Damn it. Hate
Well,
my job.
yeah, right. You're definitely going to want to check out the Brimstone Deceit by Josh Kutchin, which is, to my knowledge, actually the only book exclusively on anomalous smells and the phenomena associated with them. So, it's not just because he's a friend of mine; he's also one of the leading, researchers and authors in this field, and a great Fortean, and he does a hell of a job. So definitely check that out.
Awesome. I'm going to. Now I have to. I don't have a choice. It's the universe told me I have to. So here we are. And then Adam, did you get to also shoot lots of things?
Yes,
Nice.
yes, we did.
Very nice. Well, it
It was
sounds
a
like
good. It was a good end to the weekend.
yeah, it sounds like you guys had a great weekend. I'm a little jealous. You didn't invite me to go to hiking and shooting stuff and ham
You're welcome
sandwiches.
anytime.
So,
All,
oh,
yeah, always an open invitation.
Just
next
drive
time.
the 4 or 5 hours here, and we'll head out.
Perfect. That ham sandwich better be damn good.
I will point out though, it was weird because just to go back to the hiking for a minute. So this trail that we go, it's what we settled on. There's a whole bunch of them in the kettle. You can pretty much every few feet you can turn off the road and you can pick up a trail, whether it's like one that's noted and it's a well made trail, or it's just like a haphazard type of trail. But this one we settled on was 3.5 miles was the loop that we took. But this path was it's very windy, it's very rocky, there's a lot of tree roots. It's not an easy path, so to say. But what we noticed is someone was out there just completely barefoot, just doing this trail.
Oh yeah.
And it was just bizarre to see because you'd be walking and then there's just footprints. And it's just like we debated for so long whether or not this person was wearing those shoes that mimic the human foot, or if this person was legitimately barefoot going on this trail. And I have settled this person had to have been barefoot. They had to have.
I landed on juvenile Bigfoot.
Well, I mean, that's a pretty solid answer.
Thank you. That's what I'm saying. I think it's safe to assume that a juvenile Bigfoot, curious about humanity, was following hikers on the trail, and that's why we had the human-sized barefoot footprints. And it was only in the sandy parts, but that makes sense because that's the only part of the trail where you're going to be able to leave footprints.
We did see the Bigfoot bridge over the path, so it doesn't leave prints. We saw the Bigfoot spring where Bigfoot can drink off trail, so it doesn't leave prints. We came across the frog orgy, which was no Bigfoot around, but it was very enjoyable to just stand there and listen to like probably 1,000 frogs just going at it.
Yeah,
it was so loud.
Yeah, I experienced that this weekend also, so we have that in common.
Nice. Everybody, like, frogs just be fucking right now.
Yay, frog orgy.
It was like their Valentine's weekend, Frog Valentine's Day.
Right.
No, that is odd, but some people, they walk around barefoot everywhere all the time, and their fucking feet end up being like leather. I mean,
like hobbit feet.
yeah, like I'm a shoes person myself.
I mean, so is like everybody, you know what I mean? It's weird. You shouldn't have to mention it. Like, it's weird to not be a shoes person.
Right.
Like, that's worthy.
That's so I mean, it could be somebody who, like I said, has, basically now concrete bottoms on the soles of their feet, or Bigfoot. Yeah, I'll go with Bigfoot. That's
juvenile Bigfoot.
Juvenile. Totally fine.
Right. Because those feet would be shamefully small for an adult Bigfoot.
Don't shame Bigfoot's feet. You don't know how big his feet actually are.
That's true.
Some of them might have small feet.
we were talking about that because it used to, and I don't want to, this can't turn into another like hour long fucking digression,
It's
but
going
like,
to, but it's
I,
fine.
but we were talking about how Bigfoot didn't used to be like 10 feet tall, right? Like you go back to
We've
Yes.
had this
earlier,
discussion many times. I just want to
right?
say we've had it in cars, we've had it in bars, we've had
It's
it in each
true.
other's homes. This is a reoccurring topic that we often talk about.
It is because it's so prevalent. Like people now, if they claim to see Bigfoot, they'll be like, oh, it was like 10 feet tall. Well, that's fucking crazy. That's way too big.
Yeah.
And reports used to be, if you look at the earliest sighting reports, you're more often going to get something like 6 feet tall, which makes sense. 6, maybe 7.
That's still
Um,
big.
that's huge. Especially if it's like a 300 plus pound animal, right?
Hmm.
If
But
you
like,
if you look at old episodes of In Search of or Unsolved Mysteries, which I absolutely loved when they did their monster recreations, most of the time when they had a segment involving Bigfoot, and the In Search of one really sticks out, and I believe the episode's called Monster Hunters or Monster Searchers, and it features like Grover Krantz and John
Nice.
Green, things like guys like that. But they always depicted their Bigfoots as being the 6 foot range, but also very thin and athletic, like an athletic type build. Also, very reminiscent of in the movie The Man Who Killed Hitler and Then the Bigfoot. They also use a very thin but very tall type Bigfoot, which makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. They definitely have grown. I agree with that. And even if you look at like, let's just say that Patty is the gold standard, right? That is a Bigfoot. And I think most people in the community would agree that that is the best thing that we can base Bigfoot off of. Well, we kind of know a general idea of how tall Patty was. She was only like 6'7" to 7 foot, which is still massive,
Oh yeah.
but she wasn't 10 feet tall.
Right.
you know and I've been looking into, I've got a guy here locally, he's going to come on Fringes of Reality and talk about his show, who had a Bigfoot sighting in his backyard. Him and his wife saw this creature on 2 different days in the morning hanging around their backyard, but they live in like a wooded area. And the thing that they saw was like 4 foot tall. I mean, it was really small. And I mean, there are a lot of these smaller, Bigfoot encounters out there. They're not as sexy as 10, hell, sometimes 15 foot tall. Can you imagine a 15-foot tall bit? We would know about it. Like,
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. I mean, there's no hiding that, right?
no.
And one of the things that we brought up this past Sunday when we were talking about this, to go along with the giant Bigfoot, what people say is a lot of people say that, oh, Bigfoot follows the migration of deer and elk and things like that. Okay, if that was true, we can see these migration patterns from the air. We can see them with drones, helicopters. We have photographic proof and video proof of this happening. If they were being followed by even 4 giant 15-foot Bigfoot, we
Yeah.
would see that. There's
Right.
no way you could hide that.
Yep. Pretty much. No, I agree. It's a lot like the fisherman's tale. I think I kind of made a comment somewhere on social media recently talking about this. Grandpa caught a fish. It was this big, and it gets bigger and bigger every time he tells the story, right?
Right.
Did Grandpa catch a big fish? Probably. Was the big fish 45 feet in length? Probably not.
God, that would be amazing.
Good for Grandpa. All the grandpas listening to this who've caught 45 feet fish are pissed at me.
They're catching Ogopogos and champs and things like
Right.
that and just throwing them back.
Those are just small compared to what Grandpa catches on the regular. But
Right.
that's what it is. I mean, I don't know. We have a tendency to embellish things sometimes when we tell it, and it's not necessarily on purpose. It's just how it is. I think we kind of talked about that, me and Tobias, in a previous episode, or at least I'm having deja vu. We probably did talk about it at some point.
Oh, I talk about people making shit up all the time.
All the
Like
time.
that's
Yeah.
that's like a weekly issue for me.
Yeah. Well, people be making shit up, and we're
They
going to kind of
do.
talk about that in the news. So you'll get another chance to talk about it at length again.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Well, okay. Now we talked about Adam and my weekend at length. How was your weekend?
My weekend was super exciting. I got to spend my all day Saturday in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I don't know if you've ever heard of it
Ooh,
before.
nice.
Oh, no.
But
It sounds familiar, though.
yeah, it's really neat. They got this monster there, the Mothman. I know
That sounds
that's
stupid. That's a
so French
stupid
for
name
you,
for
but
a
yeah,
monster.
it really
That's
is.
the creature that asked Richard Gere if he had chapstick, right?
I
It
think it
is,
is.
yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
that's
one.
where I know it from. Right.
That's the only thing he's ever done. Yes.
John Klein. Yeah.
Oh yeah, John Klein, yeah. But no, it was really neat. The guys over at Wild and Weird, West Virginia, they hosted this workshop down there. Um, which is fine. Obviously, I don't need the workshop part because I'm an expert, so I already knew what they were saying. No, they're
Of
great.
course.
They're great guys. They brought a bunch of equipment for people to kind of utilize while they investigate, the TNT area down there. And but beforehand, it's just meeting all these people. Of course, a new set of people that I don't know, I've never met, but have talked to online a lot. Ron and Joe, I know them, but a lot of people that attended, I hadn't met yet. And it was awesome. It was great. Steve Ward came and hung out with us. He's a fantastic personality, and he knows. Oh, I mean, gosh, sorry, I hate the guy. I can't stand him. He's terrible. I have to keep that shtick up for as long as I can. But yeah, we got to listen to him, give his talk a little bit, and all go hang out and fucking barbecue in the TNT area. That was sweet. Um, what was interesting though is that this is just kind of the first half of the day. The last half of the day was all investigation. So the first half of the day, the person that I was having an issue finding a ride there initially. Okay. And so my original person who goes with me to all these things, she couldn't go. That's fine. I went with somebody else. I've never met this person before. That's probably a bad idea. Maybe don't cross state lines with complete strangers off the internet, but I did it and I lived. So
Yeah,
um,
exactly. Did you die?
I
No.
did not die. But anyway, we had a bunch of real life mutual friends. I figured they're probably harmless, so we went and it was fine. But they don't believe in any of this stuff. They don't follow any of this stuff. They're not into any of it. They are very scientifically driven, very skeptical, and I
Do
think
they
that
appreciate the folklore though?
no, they did not, I don't think. But I think they did learn some things, and I think they could have learned more because I wasn't the one talking. And truth be told, I go to all these events where all these people lecture and give these talks, and I don't really listen to them ever. You know what I mean? So I got to finally kind of be an outside perspective and listen to how people in my community, people that I know and trust and I think are great, credible people, deliver information and watch somebody who fucking knows absolutely nothing about these topics try to take in that information. And there are just simple things about it. It's not that these people did their job badly or wrong, but the person that I brought had no fucking clue who or what they were talking about half the time. And I think that we forget that a lot. Like at one point, they were talking about, you know, like Project Blue Book. This person doesn't know what Project Blue Book is. They have no idea, which is like to us, that's like vanilla, right? Everybody knows what that is. Well, they don't actually. They're talking about like these key players and these key events and these key pieces of research that we think is key, but we forget not everybody knows this stuff. Now, granted, I brought this person to a workshop where that was hosted by two individuals who presume that everybody that's there is a fan of their show, right? So they have a little bit of knowledge of what's going on. But I think it's kind of helped me be a little bit better when I present my own information to people and just assume that you're starting at zero, right? Because as researchers and investigators, we don't want to just entertain the people that are already into this stuff. We want regular people to actually pay attention to what we say, right? Isn't that the point?
Sure. No, I mean, I say that all the time, especially when I'm talking about something like Mothman,
Hmm.
where I mean, Mothman isn't Bigfoot or ghosts or UFOs. Like normal people haven't heard of that shit. They don't know anything. They don't know any fucking thing about it.
Right.
Nothing. I mean, even within paranormal communities, the amount of knowledge people have on these fringe of the fringe subjects is almost nothing. Very, very, very little, right? And just personally, when I'm writing, I try to be as inclusive as possible. I want things to be accessible. And so I try to explain what something is when I introduce it. Like, for instance, in one of my presentations that I give, I do mention Project Blue Book because I had a witness that I worked with that had a UFO sighting that was investigated by Project Blue Book, right? And so that's all documented and everything. And it only takes a second to kind of explain what it is. You just go, okay, well, this was the Air Force's project to investigate UFOs. Like, if you've heard of it at all, then you are probably familiar with people like Dr. J. Allen Hynek. And I just, whatever, like, fill in a little bit of that info. And the reason, of course, that you want to do that is, like you said, to kind of try to catch everybody up on all the stuff that everybody knows. But the other reason, of course, is that everybody should fucking know what our government is up to. Like,
Exactly.
every citizen in this country should be aware of all of the stupid bullshit that the government has done over the past 250 years or whatever,
And that's
Like,
that's
it's
what
important.
you just said there. I'm sorry to piggyback off of what you're saying, but what you just said there is everyone should know the stupid shit our government is doing, because so many times you will talk to people, and I guess this is just a personal issue of mine, where they give the government a lot more credit for being sneaky and really smart, when half of the time they are doing dumb shit.
Yep.
They don't know anything either.
Yep.
They can say that they do. They can say that they have the quote unquote experts and stuff. But honestly, a lot of the experts that work for the government or are employed by the government to do this stuff is getting the exact same information and research that we're able to get.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, who do you think the government turns to when they want to learn about UFOs? It's not their secret fucking Roswell files. It's literally people like us.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we know so far, just from what has been exposed in terms of what the government's various projects on UFOs have looked into, what they've uncovered. It's literally just people like us.
Yeah.
Think of it like this. Any article you write, any podcast you record, anything you put online, you are just making what is almost like a LinkedIn for the government to eventually look at, to be like, hey, can you look at this for a minute? Because we think you might know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And they don't pay,
No.
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
They'll pay. But I guess there's that ad revenue money. So you get paid somewhere, I suppose. No, when you look at one of these people that know nothing and you say J. Allen Hynek, they have fucking no idea who that is. To them, that's just another Zach Baggins.
Not if you started out by saying Close Encounters of the Third Kind actor J. Allen Hynek. Then everyone
Right.
should know who he is.
That's
Should
true.
know who it is. But one thing that I like to do, and I would like to try to actively do more, is kind of, as I am presenting information to somebody, letting them know, like, this part right here that I'm telling you, like, this is fact. These are the facts themselves. Here is where the potential is. Here's what it could be. Here's what it might be. Here's what we think. But this part is fact, like the US government having a program to try to study UFOs or whatever. That part is fact. What did they find? Well, they say nothing. And that's probably true. But again, people don't understand that because they're just seeing this and they're just thinking, any regular show on TV, or, they're just thinking we're all a bunch of crazy people and we're just kind of having fun in our little fantasy world. And anyway, again, it's no fault of the people that ran the event. Ron and Joe are amazing people, and they actually conduct real scientific experiments to try to get some type of answers. They spent all week last week getting baselines at the TNT area, so that way when they had everybody there investigating, they knew what to expect. And they're doing it all. They've got their Geiger counters and their EMFs, and I mean they're doing it all. It's just that, again, I don't think they prepared for somebody like that to be at their event, and that's fine. Which this person did engage. They engaged in conversation with others about what they thought, and without without being rude. They did come with an open mind, so I'm grateful for that. Because I don't want to be that person, right, that brought the asshole to the party.
Yeah, right.
And I wasn't. So,
It's
um,
fine. Like the vast majority of the people I know don't give a single flying fuck about any of this stuff.
right,
So
right.
it just is what it is.
A fun fact: when we are hanging out, like if we go over to my wife and I go over to Emily and Tobias's house, my wife says she loves when Tobias and I start talking about this and getting really engaged in this conversation because it puts her to sleep and she is able to drift off to the sound of bullshit and just sleep peacefully. So there's a benefit to it as
Well,
well.
I love
That's
that for
true.
her. I
The key
do.
to a happy marriage, knowing a bunch of fucking silly nonsense about shit that might not even be real, and then having passionate opinions about it as well.
We had a very passionate conversation one time about if you die when you go through a Star Trek transporter. We had a very passionate conversation about if aliens wear spacesuits, do they wear squeaky little boots? And for all these conversations, my wife fell asleep and she slept wonderfully on their
That's
couch
true.
while this was taking place.
Poor Adam's wife.
Best sleep of her life. I mean, she's
That's
the
true.
only one winning here.
Exactly.
So that was an interesting perspective that I got to get, and I felt it was that part of it was valuable to me, right? I could do my job better, right? Now I know better, I could do better. But then, of course, the actual investigations take place. We are right in the TNT area, and it's fun. Nothing extreme happened to me. We didn't stay as late as everybody else. I think they were there until like 3 a.m., which is awesome. But I had to go home because I have a child, and not just that, I didn't book a room because I didn't know if I was even going to get to go. So I'm a little disappointed, but I'm going to go back for sure with just Ron and Joe. I want to try out some CE5 stuff and fuck what's his name, Stephen Greer. But I'm interested. I've heard enough about it. I've never tried it before where people are dead serious about this lending some type of results. And I want to check that shit out. So
I will tell you this. I have tried CE5 more than once, and it did actually lead to the most spectacular recorded UFO sighting that I've had in the kettle. So,
very cool.
I mean, maybe it was a
Yeah.
coincidence, but maybe not.
I really hadn't thought too much about it because it is attached to Greer and he sucks. But I had this girl. She actually, we're Facebook friends, and she was always into this stuff. Would always talk about this kind of stuff. We're friends in real life, and she started doing it. And after like the third time, she was like, "I can't tell you guys what happened, but something fucking crazy happened, and I'm done with all of it." Has never talked about aliens or UFOs ever since. Is afraid
Hmm.
to. And I'm like,
Interesting.
I don't know what happened, but I want to find out. And I've had other again credible researchers be like, look, be careful. And I'm like, be careful. What's this? That just makes me want to do it even more.
Right? Tell me
So
to be careful. Now I'm
I'm
going
not
to be even less careful.
right. I'm definitely not going to be careful. Um, they did one experiment which was really neat because that jellyfish UFO video that came out kind of recently. Remember that one?
Oh, I do.
Yeah, that one. So what they wanted to do was they actually, because a lot of people were saying maybe it's just balloons. So they actually had balloons there, and they did not litter. Actually, they sent them up on a fishing line so they could reel them back in, but they wanted to record it using thermal and see if it gave off a heat signature and, what that would look like to compare it to that video. Now, granted, I suppose if there is a heat signature, then that means that it is potential that this video was just balloons. And if it doesn't, well, maybe it's not that. And they did not give off a heat signature. Definitely go to their, if you guys are more interested in like the details of that particular experiment, go to Wild Weird Radio on YouTube, and I'm sure they'll be doing something about it. But I don't want to give away too much on their stuff. But that was neat. And then, of course, everybody had thermals, everywhere. One person walked into one of the bunkers at the TNT area and, shot some thermal footage. And one of the rocks that was in there had a heat signature, and that was weird. So, just for some perspective about what kind of day it was very beautiful, very sunny, very hot. I sweated a lot. It was like 80 degrees, full on sun. But these bunkers are ice cold. They're just concrete igloos, right, in the middle
Mm.
of this forestry, and so it's all usually very cold. Now they do have holes at the top of them. Some of the holes with, just time and what's happened have become uncovered from like the mud. So stuff can definitely fall into the holes. It's not like it's unheard of. The bunkers themselves are not falling apart at all. But there was this massive rock in the middle where in a bunker that the hole was still covered with mud and whatnot. And it had a heat signature. We don't know why. Who knows why? I don't know.
Cue
Mothman
Expendables
egg.
music.
A Mothman egg. I was gonna say
Mothman egg that had just been laid, so
it's
it was
gotta
still
be.
warm.
Yeah, he definitely did lay that egg, but I'm sure something. I don't know, but it was pretty far out there. I mean, people they were kind of way away from the whole group, so the museum owns one of the bunkers, and you can kind of camp out around that area. But nobody's really going to bother you out there, so they were like they went off, and it was like in a way different one. Now again, who knows? Maybe they're not trustworthy people. Maybe they were handling the rock beforehand. I don't know. I doubt it. I think that it was just something fucking weird because that whole place is fucking weird. So,
Could be. One thing I will say, and this is why I don't love organized investigations that are really more or less just paranormal tours,
sure.
is that you don't get the kind of strict objectivity and unbiased perspective that that
Yeah.
I normally enjoy during an in investigation. And so I don't know. I don't know these people. I don't know anybody who was there other than you. But if it's open to the public and you've got people, buying tickets or something to go on an investigation, suddenly everything is fucking weird. Suddenly, people are seeing ghosts everywhere. So who knows?
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. That is definitely a part of having those group outings, which is kind of why I wasn't too bent out of shape about not staying too long, is because I just feel like it muddies the swamp waters of the TNT area a little bit.
Right.
But it's not a bad idea for anybody looking to get into this type of stuff, just to kind of see if you're going to go out, conduct experiments, and investigate kind of what to do.
Oh yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and it doesn't mean there's no results. It just means I agree that the results can very well be flawed at that point.
Yeah.
I didn't have any strange feelings. A lot of people say that you are your best tool in these investigations. I've had times where we've gone out to the TNT area. I mean, it's not too far, but it's a good 2 hours. We've gone all the way out there just to fucking leave because it just feels like we shouldn't be there.
Hmm.
And it's not like I'm going with I'm not taking anybody new in those instances. It's the same people that have already been out there before. We know what to expect, but it just feels like we shouldn't we gotta go. I don't know what it is about the place. Um, but yeah, so it was definitely a good time, and it kind of rejuvenated me a little bit because I haven't been out there in a long time. I mean, the last time I was at the TNT area, it's been like 2 years. It's
Oh
been a
wow.
minute. Yeah, it's been a while. So I've been to Point Pleasant since then, but getting out there has been kind of well. Every time I go, it's like shitty weather or whatever, so I don't go out there. I tell everybody not to touch the water. They say it's safe. I don't believe any fucking thing that the government says in regards to that. So I'll
Yeah, I
pass.
mean, it it might still be a super fun site, but it was for a long time.
It is, yeah. It is still a super fun site. So I'm like,
Okay.
but people will fish and hunt, and I'm like, oh god,
Eh,
no.
no.
There's
Pass.
other places to do that.
Well, we will be out there, rain or shine, at the Mothman Festival, and hopefully, the guys that you were just talking about who put on this event will be out there, and we'll have a chance to hang out and go
Yeah.
into the TNT area and find some Mothman eggs or whatever. I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, but we could find a Mothman egg. You don't know.
There's this one guy I talked to when I first got into all this, and I went to the Mothman Festival in 2019, and it changed my life. There was a guy we talked to. His name's Bigfoot Bob. He goes by that on YouTube, and but he's investigated the area, and he's got this video, and it's fucking hilarious. He's out in the TNT area. He's out there at night, and he's like kind of walking towards like back towards one of the bunkers, and there is a random goose following him. And so he finally like gets like into the bunker itself, and he hears something. He's like, "Oh my god, what's that?" And he turns the camera, and it's the fucking goose following him into the bunker.
That goose was gonna fuck him up, I bet.
It's like,
They're mean.
What are you doing in my swamp?
And a knife
I don't
hidden
know.
under his wing.
Seriously.
I think he just wanted probably some food. Actually, he's like, all this stuff here is terrible. I can't eat this. No, it's my favorite. But anyway, so yeah, it was a good time, of course, and I'm excited to go back very, very soon. So that was the highlight of my weekend. And then I spent all day Sunday recovering like I was hungover. I'm like, wow, I guess it's been a while since I've been out in the woods like that. But man, I was roughing it yesterday. I'm sorry, Sunday. And it was tough. So
I get it.
here I am back to normal. So that
Nice.
investigation fatigue is for real. So
It is. No, I was stiff as shit on Sunday after all that hiking. So I get it. Like, especially the first hike of the year.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Nothing makes you feel older.
yeah, right. Yeah, and it was definitely my first hike of the year, and I was just like, holy shit, I forgot. Oops. But it was good. So anyway,
Good.
now that we're 40 minutes into the show,
I know, right?
let's why don't we talk about some news?
We should talk about some news. How many news do you have?
Well, so the way that I was thinking of news, because you sent me your news, I have one news, you have one news, and we have a mutual news.
Mutual news.
You like that plot twist there?
I do.
Adam, did you bring any news?
I don't know. I can quick look for some.
No, it's okay. I didn't expect that much from you. But you
No
never
one
know.
ever does, and I'm cool with that.
Some guests bring up some news. But I will go ahead and share my first news here. And it is in regards to the announcement that just went out, the changes that just happened with the Vatican and the paranormal. I'm sure you guys have read about that. A lot of people are kind of anticipating the Vatican's going to make a statement about the paranormal. It's going to be about aliens. You know, that's what they were expecting. It wasn't actually. It wasn't about that aliens at all.
I have no idea why anybody thought it was gonna be, but you know
I
how
don't
people
either.
are.
You know, but that's what everybody was hyping it up to be, and it just wasn't. So the Vatican has pretty much changed their parameters for how they're going to be handling supernatural events. So for a long time, the Vatican has kind of had certain instances where they kind of either endorse or don't endorse certain events, and usually it's cases like stigmata, right? It's crying Mary statues or images of, the Virgin Mary or Jesus, or, and they go, oh yeah, we think that this is a full-blown miracle, or they go, nah, it's not. They're kind of not going to do that anymore, really. Not in the same official way that they had before. So they've pretty much decided that they are honestly overwhelmed by a lot of these potential supernatural cases, and they just don't think that there's any real reason to continue to follow up in that way. As a matter of fact, the doctrine of faith warns that incidents claimed to be of supernatural origin can be manufactured by people seeking, quote, profit, power, fame, social recognition, or other personal interest.
What?
Um,
No.
I know, right? It's crazy that it took the Vatican that long to figure that out, but here we are. So they're just, they will kind of give like a soft nod to certain events, but again, they're just not really going to track them as they used to. So even the Vatican is tired of your shit, and
I mean,
It was the AI that did it. The AI pictures of Jesus and miracles on Facebook. They're like, we're done. We
that was the
can't do
final
this
straw. Yeah.
no more.
I mean, okay, but like, do your fucking job, Vatican. You
Right.
know, you've got like one job. Oh, people are hoaxing stuff. We're not going to look into it anymore. I don't fucking care. You know,
Yeah.
like people can't just not do their job because they're sick of it or it's slightly harder now. Just do your job. You got to look into this stuff. It doesn't matter.
I agree, but I think that they're
Lazy
also
Vatican.
well, they're dwindling in numbers. You know what I mean? I saw a Reddit post, which we all know is a very credible news source.
Of course.
But this was more of a life thing. Reddit post about a guy who has a crush on a nun currently. And a lot of people chimed in, well, my father was a priest and now he's not anymore because I'm here. My best friend was a nun and now she's not anymore. And then I just kind of went into this rabbit hole of like how many people are kind of not really participating that seriously in the church. And it turns out a lot of them. So that could be a contributing factor to them deciding not to, conduct research on these things any longer. I'd agree with Adam. I think AI definitely throws a wrench in their whole operation there. They're just like, man, fuck this. This is too hard now.
I mean, it would have the same effect on them that it would on us. Really, it's no different.
I agree. I agree. And they definitely get paid a lot more money than we do. So.
Right. I mean, I guess at the end of the day, I don't really give a shit because nothing they do affects me. But I don't know. It's like this sense of nostalgia, like there have to be Vatican priests out there going to, like, just showing up to remote villages and shit and trying to find out if their fucking statue of the Virgin Mary is really crying blood or whatever.
Yeah.
Because like there's this sense of mystery, it adds a certain like whimsy to the world for me. Anything that makes this stuff a little less official is I don't know. It's something that I don't like seeing necessarily.
Sure.
But it doesn't, whatever. Like it doesn't change how mustard tastes. Like it's not going to have any effect on us. But at the end of the day, I still want priests out there looking into like Jesus showing up on your toast or whatever.
Well, besides, if they stop doing it, who are going to be the ones who be like, wow, this is way out of our league? And then they have to call in the Constantine type character who actually has to fight the demons and the ghosts and the beings from hell. If they're not doing that, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, you're right. It's a necessary step in the process. You need that middleman.
I don't think they're stopping exorcisms. At least they didn't say they were. So they're still willing to go to war against the devil or whatever they do. But but they're just not endorsing miracles any longer. So it's like, okay, so I mean, they're just kind of giving up on their own. I mean, it's such an old religion, like, and we don't really have a lot of modern day miracles to begin with. I mean, don't we kind of need those, right? If you want to fuel that religion more, it just seems like a bad move on their part. I agree with that.
Tell you
Not
what,
very lucrative.
From now on, if you have a miracle and you need somebody to take a look at it and tell you whether or not it's legit, you just reach out to us here at the On Wednesdays We Talk Weird podcast, and we will judge your miracle. We will let you know if it's real or not.
I want to be part of that.
I was going to say, we'll actually be hiring Adam full time just to check into your miracles. So
I'm going to show up in a pair of cargo shorts in this dirty old orange flannel that I always wear, and you let me in your house and you show me that miracle. I'm going to give you an honest answer, and if it's real, I'm going to give you a bag of beef jerky. Like, that's your prize.
I hope you want a bunch of Cool Ranch Dorito dust all over your miracle, because you're going to have it. You want me to let Adam into your house.
You want me to tell you what restaurant in the area has the best chicken strips? That's what's in store, buddy.
And he'll throw in a wink for free.
Heck yeah. I'll do a special knock on the door, too, that's like, dun, 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 miracle boy.
We have our official On Wednesdays We Talk Weird miracle investigation team, and it is just Adam. So,
are we MIT?
Yes, we're MIT. Yep. There we go. Now we got to make shirts or something, appease the masses. But yes, why not? Sure, let's do it. If you have any miracles, let us know. Then we'll get right on top of it. So, because the Vatican won't. They have forsaken you.
Fucking Vatican. I guess I'll just do it.
You know what they say, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself. So
we're like the spirit Halloween of investigating miracles now. The Vatican moved out and we're like, it's ours. We got this.
Exactly.
And once the arrow goes under, we'll be there too. Um,
Oh yeah, just waiting, just like circling like vultures.
one day. Yeah. So that's my my one news, and then I know Tobias, you have an article to share.
I do. I've
Um,
got a news that people may or may not have heard of. So, this crime scene expert came out and said that the Las Vegas video. Now, do you guys remember this video? It was shot in Las Vegas last year, pretty much exactly a year ago. Actually, it was late April, early May, and it purportedly shows this tall, possibly alien being and this Las Vegas family reacting to it when they go outside to investigate the strange happenings around their home, right?
yeah.
And so this crime scene recreation expert Scott Roeder of Evidence Room Animation and Exhibits recently went on News Nation, and I know we all love News Nation, last month, and said that not only has the video released last year by that Las Vegas family not been altered, but it also shows an entity that is possibly cloaking itself. Yeah, right?
What?
I don't know why we didn't hear more about this. I
Like
mean,
the
Scott,
Predator?
yeah, like, well, kind of. Like, I mean, and Scott Roeder said this. So, yeah, fucking buckle up. So this video, like I mentioned, was recorded around midnight between April 30th and May 1st in 2023 after the Kenmore family reportedly encountered two tall alien beings. The reported beings appeared following the flight of a large fireball overhead and the apparent crash landing of something in their backyard. So that fireball, of course, is being speculated to be a large meteor of some sort. Sure. It very much looks like, a bolide meteor or something. It was recorded by a few different sources. I think some people got it on their Ring doorbell cameras. I think a police officer got it on his body cam. So we know for a fact that there was some kind of fireball that flew over Las Vegas that night, if nothing else. So what Roeder told News Nation was, once you see it, you can't deny it. There's no editing. That is an original video. We tried to debunk it to see if there was something that was added to the video. All of our results came back as it was authentic. So Roeder used a motion tracking software, which also identifies the source of the motion, to analyze the video. And this is when it gets really weird, because he goes completely off the fucking rails and starts saying shit like this. We can take a video and look at whether or not there is an artificial artifact added to it or not. And in this case, we can definitively say to a degree of scientific certainty that this entity, this thing in the video, is in the physical reality in which the Kenmore family is also there. Like, this is so critical because you can clearly see through the slots of the fence that there is a leg in motion moving from the right side to the left side of the screen behind there. So this isn't just like a head floating in space. But it gets weirder. This is a head that somehow does not have full opacity. The opacity of the head of the shadow is only about 33% opacity, blah, blah, blah. He goes on like this and talks about how the head's not dark enough because if it was a shadow, it should be 100% opacity, or an object should be 100% opacity. Bunch of boring nerd talk about opacity. And then he says, and this isn't anything that you did, meaning that it's not something that was done to the video. Like, it hasn't been tampered with, right? It's just what you are able to determine that this shadow being or this being in shadows did, possibly creating its own shadow or smoky filter or cloaking technique that is not only cloaking itself to the people there, but is cloaking itself from the camera, and that it's minimizing our ability to identify pixels inside of that shadow. So I want everybody listening to listen very, very carefully. And what you just heard was the sound of Adam having a stroke as I read all of that.
Okay, I'm watching this video as you're describing it. I'm mad.
I know. I bet you're so
I don't
mad.
even know what.
Picture it.
I'm listening to you say what you're saying, and I'm watching this recreation of this supposed alien walking in the backyard, and I'm just I don't know how to
Well,
feel.
you gotta take into account that it's cloaked. It's cloaking itself
It's
from the
like 9
camera.
feet tall.
Yeah, that's alien. That's how
That's
tall they can get sometimes. You got to let them grow like a long time
It
for if
looks
that's
like
all, but it's possible.
they made it look like something reminiscent of the aliens from Independence Day when they're wearing the suits.
Yeah,
I don't like this. I'm not going to like this video on YouTube.
perfect. So, okay. Well, they didn't just interview Scott Roeder. They had Ben Hansen on. So, a lot of people that are interested in UFOs probably know who Ben Hansen is. But if you don't, he's a former federal agent and host of UFO Witness on Discovery Plus. And he doesn't entirely agree with Roeder's assessment. So maybe that'll make you feel a little better, Adam.
He was also a host on that show Fact or Faked, I
There you
believe.
go.
And I did appreciate when they would get cases, they would pull out a lot of stops to try and figure out if they were hoaxes or not. So I do respect his opinion on things, but I don't put all my eggs in that basket.
Yeah, fair enough. Nobody's right all the time. But what Hansen is saying this time is that he was excited that Roeder was able to examine the raw footage because that's not a thing that anybody else has been able to do so far, apparently. And he did agree that the video was likely unaltered, which makes sense. It doesn't really show any signs that it's been altered. But he thinks that a rogue shadow could be to blame for the purported entity. So probably not a cloaked entity, but a rogue shadow. So he said, if you look, there's 2 or 3 different light sources. And anytime you have that happening, you can have a lot of shadows from different angles. So unfortunately, we'll never have the same exact circumstance where you can go back and test to see what might be causing a shadow effect. Now, if you think Roeder was just going to take that fucking lying down, then you have another thing coming because Roeder fires back, and he said, I don't understand how the shadow could just be floating above the fence. I don't believe that makes any sense. So Roeder has the final word. He doesn't think that Hansen's shadow hypothesis is correct because it's clearly a cloaked alien. So suck on that, everybody.
I guarantee there was at least one person on the internet when someone posted this who simply called Ben Hansen a boob.
Yes.
Guaranteed.
Boob Ben Hansen. Expert my ass. He can't even recognize a cloaked alien when he sees one in a video where somebody took the time out of their day to draw on top of it so you know what it looks like. I mean, come on.
This is just 3D chess of the red circle. It's evolved into a 3D modeled alien. Look where I'm telling you to look and see what I want you to see.
Right. Look, I drew a picture on the screen. That's what it looks like.
Oh, Jesus. I have a lot of opinions about this thing in general, if you're ready for them.
Yeah, sure.
So, first of all, I don't fucking see what everybody is talking about, and I can't. It's like those images when you were kids, right? In magazines. Yeah, the magic eye. I've never been able to see them. I think that you're all fucking lying to me. I
have an astigmatism, so I generally can't see them.
I've never seen one ever, and it's not real. It's a conspiracy against me directly. So that's how I feel about this alien video because I get what you're saying. What's confusing to me is when you sent me the article, because we talk outside of the show, believe it or not.
True.
And I watched the News Nation interview about it from your article. The part of the video that he's talking about is not what everybody was talking about when that video came out. So that is odd to me. I followed this very closely when it happened.
Oh yeah, we both did.
Right, and I mean, just because it was weird, right? And the first time when the story broke, it was just the 911 call, and then the video came out a couple days later, and here we are. But they were talking about, like, in the video, they're like hustling around this backyard, and they kind of go through the fence. But before they get to that point, I get what he's saying. You see the shadow thing in the fence, and that's not what people were talking about in the video. They were talking about when they got into the yard, there's like a truck back there, and it was like kind of chilling behind the truck. You know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Maybe it looked like something, but it didn't move. It
kind of looked like a gray alien head, like you could see it through the window.
Right.
Kinda, yeah.
And that's, I mean, and it's just only kind of like that. I wouldn't
Right.
necessarily agree. Now, the son in the situation, the guy who called, which I think he was like a teenager at the time, maybe like 17 or so. When the one that called apparently has gone on to go make a bunch of crazy claims. Like it's not just this video now. Supposedly, it has infected, their entire life, which I haven't kept up on. So I want to look into that a little bit more and see what he's saying. Now, of course, I think all the claims are crazy. I mean, they're really out there. Um, but it definitely seems like to me that this is just somebody who used an opportunity with a fucking meteor in the sky and made it something that it shouldn't have been.
I don't know what to make of the witnesses. So Angel, that's the kid you're talking
Yes.
about, and
Yeah.
then the rest of his family. They don't seem incredible to me. They seem like a lot of witnesses that I've spoken to and worked with, and their reaction seems to be authentic, more or less,
Mhm.
right? So I don't know that they are making things up. Um, I think that it, this at least started as an authentic experience, and I mean that strictly in the sense that something happened that they couldn't explain, and they were doing their best to honestly recount their experience of it. And so, like, they were trying to authentically provide their narrative of what they believe they experienced, right? Um, and beyond that, who knows? I think it's certainly possible. You've got a giant fireball, and then maybe, well, then they said that they heard something in their backyard, and so at that point, one of two things I think was probably happening. Like either some fucking alien showed up in their backyard, or they got themselves all hyped up that something weird was going on and started jumping at shadows. I don't know which one it was, but I think we all know which one is probably likelier. But yeah, I don't see any indication necessarily that they were lying about anything. And I think that what can happen too is once you have an experience like this, and it has a huge effect on you, suddenly everything becomes weird, and you're
Sure.
interpreting everything that happens as being a part of this phenomenon. And so I don't know, because I haven't I don't know. I'm unwilling to take on the fucking part-time job of following them at this
Right.
point to see exactly every single thing they're saying. But I am familiar with some of the sort of paranormal phenomena that they had reported in coordination with and just after that initial sighting. And it is similar to a lot of the stuff that we see in other sightings, as well, especially like say Mothman sightings or UFO sightings or things like that. Um, and so there is a consistency there, and again, nothing to indicate that they're profiting off of or have any other motive to lie about this. It's not like they're getting famous for it or anything either. You've got Scott Roeder going on News Nation. They're not on News Nation.
Sure. I think that if something, I agree with you. I don't really want to take on the load of really digging into these people. And you're right. Initially when I got into Injured Cold, one of the rumors that I'd heard without doing any research on him was that he was impregnated by the Landiologians, and I thought that was ridiculous and had no interest in the story because of it. I now know that's not true. Which is why doing your own homework is very important.
Right.
But I don't really intend on doing my own homework on these people unless something else amazing happens. I'm not going to talk to this guy. He's all the way in Vegas. I'm not going to go out to their house and, test their backyard for different levels of different things. And, it's just not going to happen.
Right.
But I'll go ahead and say that my opinion as of today is that I just don't think anything happened there. I think that it probably is more so some hype got generated. Because I agree. I think the family members do seem credible. None of them speak English besides him. And I think that they do seem genuinely freaked out about what's going on, but they also have some type of I'm not going to make any assumptions, but some type of Latin culture. And typically, like we've talked about before with Mexico and kind of how they view these things, they're usually like instantly like they're a believer right away without anything, you know. Not to speak for everybody, but like we've seen the president in Mexico make some crazy claims, and it's just a cultural thing, and that's fine. But I don't think it would be hard to hype those people up and kind of work them up into a frenzy, if you wanted to. So that's just my opinion on it. Again, it's an opinion. We all have them. Um, but I do think it's interesting that people are still analyzing that video a year later.
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe it was a slow news day. I don't really know, but yeah, I was surprised to see it because I also was caught off guard. I was like, wow, it was almost a year to the day that, that this interview came out with the crime scene recreation expert.
Yeah.
And yeah, I again, like you, caught totally off guard. No idea people still cared about it.
I
I think it's cool when people follow up on stuff like that. I always keep in contact, or at least try to, with every witness that I've ever worked with. So, if anything new happens or new information comes about, or I have a breakthrough or something, that I can share it with them. But you just don't hear about anything like that very often.
You don't get a lot of follow up. We've
You
talked
don't,
about that before, just in the news in general. Like nobody follows up about it. I mean,
right?
it's been months since that finger was found in the Ohio Walmart, and nothing's ever happened with it, I guess. So, or we'll just never know,
No, nobody showed up to claim the finger. So
as far as, or maybe they have and they just didn't report on it. I don't know. But it happens a lot. It really does. So it is surprising to see something like this being followed up on. So, I mean, if more comes from it, I'd be interested to dig more into it. But until something does, I'm just not touching it. How about that?
yeah, no, that's fair. So just to confirm with Adam, we have definitive proof of a cloaked alien on video.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, oh my god. Okay. All I'm saying, if I was awoken in the middle of the night because a fireball or something landed in my backyard, and I went outside and I was like, wow, this is kind of alien to me, the first thing I'm going to do is any creature that's hiding behind my garage or a car or anything, I'm going to shoot it. That's what's going to happen.
You'll shoot anything.
It's the ultimate proof.
That's true.
I don't need crime scene investigation guy making a 3D model of what I said. I'm going to be like, here's the body. Look at it.
Yeah, but what if you got yourself into a Stardust Ranch situation where you hack a gray alien to death with your $200 mall katana and it just turns into mush?
Then my neighbors can document it as I'm just blasting these aliens in my backyard and they're turned into puddles. We will have evidence.
Yes. Okay. This just in. Janesville man arrested for shooting a possum.
An alien possum.
Right, sure.
Here's my question. If it does turn into like goop, would you drink it?
I don't, maybe.
Have
What's
a
it
little
smell
taste.
like?
Would it give you powers?
I mean, I don't know. That's the risk that you're taking, right?
It's
Someone's got to take one for the team and try it.
It's probably the kind of goop that just turns you into goop.
It's just pure mercury. Now you're fucked. Well, or if it was a powder, snort it. On the other hand, I
Okay.
mean,
We were just talking about snuff because Adam didn't know that snuff was a thing.
No,
And
I did know snuff was a thing, but we didn't know if it was still sold in stores.
oh, okay. I thought you hadn't heard of it, but yeah, okay. So fair enough. Sorry, but it's a thing in Wisconsin for sure. I don't know if anybody else out there has heard of snuff, but it's like a kind of tobacco that you snort, and
wait,
it's
what?
You don't know about this? It's relatively popular, especially among. Well, okay. I only learned about it because of my like outdoorsy friends growing up, and like their dads would always do snuff when they were out hunting. And I'm gonna assume it's because you don't want to smoke while hunting because animals can smell that shit. And maybe they didn't like to chew. I have no idea. But yeah, so It's a thing. It's powdered tobacco, and you snort it, and it's like the equivalent of a bunch of cigarettes at once.
It's the if you do a whole tin of snuff, it's the equivalent of 3 packs of cigarettes.
Wow.
You just do it all in one huge line.
Just keep going until you just pass out from. I
Yeah.
mean, can you overdose on nicotine? I'm sure you can.
I think you can. Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know. I guess I thought snuff was chewing tobacco, but it's not. I guess
No, it's powdered snortable tobacco.
that's disgusting. And
I know.
I smoke. Like
I forgot all about it actually until it came up somehow naturally in conversation, and I just had all these memories coming back of like, oh yeah, shit, snuff is totally a thing. That's totally a fucking thing. Like that's a thing you do out in the woods. Because I totally did it when I was a teenager. Like I at least tried it more than once.
how was it?
It was all right. I don't know.
It sounds terrible, but whatever. Anyway, okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Don't do tobacco, any kids.
At all.
Actually, well, fuck. If you're a kid listening to this show, go get your parents and then ask them why they let you listen.
They're already. Yeah, you guys should be listening together at least.
That's true. You need parental support and guidance.
I give all of these new listeners permission, regardless of age. I say that you can listen to this, and if you have any miracles, send them our way.
That's right.
That's true.
You can have a miracle at any age. So
Yes.
no. It's a miracle that anybody would let their kid listen to the show in and of itself. So
That's fair. I never had any restrictions really on what kind of media I could consume as a kid though.
yeah.
So I watched a lot of really fucked up shit from a pretty young age. So I guess who am I to judge? You know what? Get your kids in here, like just as a family.
Like I said, as a family, yeah, absolutely. And then kids go tell your friends at school about us, and
Absolutely. Get
spread
them
it
in all
around.
kinds of trouble with their parents when they get caught listening to me saying fuck like every other word.
It's no worse than what they do, I'm sure. All right, let's talk about the thing everybody wants to talk about, our kind of mutual news here. Let's talk about these Tasmanian tiger pictures.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I was expecting a groan from.
I did. My eye roll did not pick up on the microphone.
No,
Oh,
it did.
okay.
It did. Was that what that noise was? So, God, where do we start here?
Can I start?
Please go ahead. Yes,
I think you should.
Because I was just bringing this up the other day that if you have come across this Tasmanian tiger story on TikTok, what's going along on TikTok is that this took place in Arkansas. The Tasmanian tiger, I am here to tell everyone, the Tasmanian tiger was not seen in Arkansas.
I mean, do you know that for a fact?
Well, the story that they're saying is that prior to the Tasmanian tiger's extinction, a bunch of them were secretly loaded up on a boat, and then the boat crashed off the coast of the United States, and the tigers swam to shore to make a breeding population, and one of them got into Arkansas, and that's the one where the pictures were taken.
Well, I got to tell you, I
crashed
saw
directly into Arkansas.
Yeah, I saw a Tasmanian tiger in Arkansas, and it looked at me, and then it winked at me, and now we're friends.
The
It was
tiger
10
looked at
feet
you.
tall.
Proof, right there.
Yeah, that's
I
definitely.
when I came across this, I had to watch the video multiple times to be like, is he saying Arkansas? Yeah, that's what's going around, is now there are actual Tasmanian tigers in Arkansas.
Okay.
But now you go.
Now it's my turn. How do I fucking follow that?
You can't. He ruined it.
Yes.
What's his name? Forrest. What is
Forrest
it? Galante. Galante.
I don't know. I call him Gallant, but I
yeah,
don't. I've never bothered to hear his name out loud.
I'm gonna call him Galante.
Forrest
Galante. Anyway, that guy, he's on TV and stuff. He does things, and he's also on YouTube. And he had somebody contact him going by the name of Zach, but is anonymous for the most part. claiming to have taken these interesting photos of the Tasmanian tiger I think, in Tasmania proper.
Not
Is that in Arkansas?
It is.
Okay.
It's just right it's the capital
So
of Arkansas.
Tasmania, Arkansas. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's the capital. It's right next to Little Rock. So
Okay.
anyway, and this is of course happening in Australia. This is an Australian creature. So the Tasmanian tiger, aka the Thylacine, is a extinct creature, extinct animal that we know existed at some point. However, there are lots and lots of reports of this thing to this day, which I'll be honest with you, I think are valid. I think it exists. I think it's still around, just in a very small population. That's my personal opinion. The pictures that came forward were exciting, shocking, and also shockingly not so great at the same time. People are still talking about these. Some of them look really good. Some of them, there's like a picture at one point of just like the body of it, and it looks legitimate. It looks like maybe there's a flashlight or something on it. I guess I'll start with what happened to begin with. Zach was traveling with his father in this specific area when they stopped the car because they thought they saw an injured dog. And they get out of the car, and it wasn't really a dog. Now, he didn't know what it was at the time, so he claims. He said he thought it was like some type of dingo creature, and he took pictures of it before it hobbled off. It growled at them or bared its teeth. Actually, he said it meowed at them, which is interesting, and then went off into the night. Sorry, I had to cough. But anyway, so he took these photos. I don't know. I think he was talking to somebody later on when he showed them the photos, and they were like, "Holy shit, you don't know what you have, do you?" And he didn't. So of course he goes to Forrest and gives him his photos instead of anybody of any type of real credibility. And Forrest now shows them on his YouTube channel. And people are debating what these photos could be. Have you guys all seen the photos?
Yes.
Yeah.
What's your immediate reaction to them without research or anything? Just immediately, what did you think about them?
Looks like a bunch of fake shit somebody made in Microsoft Paint.
So Nate Brislin, and he posted some stuff on it. I think he was the first one who brought them, who posted links to them, and I was looking at them. My immediate thought was, it looks like someone took a picture of like a museum replica where they make them, the new museum replicas is where they try to make them like in motion. This is what these animals look like where they're jumping, sleeping and laying down, things like that. And it looks like someone took a picture of that and then heavily edited it, because it had an uncanny valley look to it where it's just like, this thing isn't real, but they really tried to make it look real.
Yeah, some of the photos are very splotchy, and it doesn't look like regular, like, bad camera quality splotchiness. Like, it looks almost like a painting.
Yeah, it looks
sometimes.
like somebody took the stupid spray can tool in Microsoft Paint
Right.
and had their 5-year-old draw a fucking thylacine.
Yeah, yeah. And, like I said, some of them are like, okay, but because not all of them are like that, yeah, and they're questionable. So the big post going around is some guy who, like, going on Facebook is some guy who shared the photos. And he only shared 4 of the photos and, like, just so conveniently left out the most sketchy one of all. Which is a photo, which is also the most identifying photo, if these were real, which is allegedly of the creature with its mouth open, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it looks terrible.
It does. It looks like, yeah, it's got like the weird rectangular shape to its jaw, like its open mouth. That is clearly unnatural.
To try to extend it further, right? And it's like, this is weird. And it's got that weird splotchiness to it. It just looks fucking fake.
Yeah.
And like I said, the other photos are not so bad. Some people had pointed out different characteristics that didn't match up, like the nose does not actually match up to the Tasmanian tiger. And, it has kind of more of a rounded snout on it. And things of that nature. Like I said, there's one taken of it from the side, and that one looks pretty good. Like, you should have just shared that one, my guy, and then we all maybe would have believed it. But it's these other photos that are terrible. and don't make any sense. So people, of course, are still doing some research about it. Forrest himself says that he's skeptical about it, which from what I hear, I don't know anything about the guy, but from what I hear, people say is shocking because usually he endorses a lot of bullshit. I don't know.
I
But
believe he was the one who did the Bigfoot skull hoax video
He sure
last
fucking
year.
was.
no, that was Coyote Peterson.
Oh, right.
Was it?
Then what did fucking Forrest do? Hold on.
Yeah.
He did something. No, you're right. That was Coyote. What the? Anyway,
He's
hold on.
he's
Well,
he's been
I'll circle back
sketchy.
to it.
Sure, I'll talk some more while you do. But yeah, he's been kind of sketchy in the past. But even he's saying he is skeptical. And then some people have like dug up certain details. Like the guy mentions the flight that he took in and out of the area for whatever reason. I haven't watched the video. I'll just be perfectly honest with you. I've only seen the pictures. And they were saying that like there is no flight that goes from this point to this point. Like that doesn't exist. So like that's not real. And just little things like that that just kind of don't really add up. And like I said, for me, it's just the pictures. I mean, you're not going to come on now. We're talking about an animal that's so elusive, right? We still consider it extinct, and you're going to get that close to it. An injured animal. He said that he believes it was hit by a car. Why he thinks it was hit by a car, I don't know. Because it was limping around, I guess. I don't know why you would assume it's a car. But that's what he thought. And this thing's not going to let you get close to it. First of all, even if it wasn't injured, it's definitely not going to let you get that close to it to take that many pictures of it.
Right.
It's going to leave. Why it meowed, I don't know. They don't make meow noises. That's weird.
No, that is weird. Okay, so all right, this is why we got Forrest confused with Coyote. Is Forrest defended Coyote Peterson
Ah,
after he pulled that stupid hoax with the Sasquatch skull?
gotcha.
But also, this isn't the first time recently that Forrest has been involved in like a thylacine fucking controversy because he was the one who said that he had that photo of the fucking Tasmanian tiger jaw that he couldn't release because reasons.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And it's never been released, I suppose.
No,
Of
course
course
not.
not. Of course not. But I think we're all three of us here are in agreement about what we're looking at, and it's definitely not a thylacine. What do you guys? What say you?
Yeah, it's not a thylacine. If it closest thing that it would be is one of those like that new type of taxidermy where you make like a soft mount, where like you you make something look as if it is still alive, and someone just threw it down in the grass and like took a picture and then heavily edited the photo.
Yeah,
It's not real.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Tobias?
Well, I hate to break this to everybody who didn't already know, but these people on YouTube, they make shit up so you
What?
watch their fucking videos.
Are you serious?
Yeah. No, I
Wow.
know. I am sure everybody's world is crashing down right now. But yeah, we've seen it. And how many fucking times are we going to go around on this fucking carousel in cryptozoology, right? Where some dipshit makes some fucking hoax, some hoax photos or some fucking internet star or whatever makes some fucking video hoaxing something so they get fucking attention, and then it comes out later that it was a hoax or we just never hear about it again. Either one is equally likely. And then everybody just forgets about it. And then the next time it happens, they're like, oh no, this one for sure is the time. This is going to be real. I can feel it. And no, Charlie Brown, Lucy is going to pull the football away this fucking time too, you moron. So like at a certain point, like when is enough enough? When do we see things from people like Forrest or Coyote Peterson or whatever and just go, I'm going to assume this is fucking fake because this person does this shit all the fucking time and they are not credible.
Yeah. And in the world of today in AI, it's definitely, I mean, and even before AI, even if these were real pictures, it wouldn't matter. It doesn't, it's not enough for science to go, oh yeah, that's fine. We're going to say that we're going to bring it out of extinction now because somebody took photos of this. I learned that lesson the very hard way back with the Georgia Bigfoot body hoax. Remember that? Oh,
Oh
um,
yeah, I was deep into that story when it came out up back on Crypto Mundo back in the
yep.
day. I was like,
Oh
what
yeah.
is happening here?
Yeah. I was very excited, of course. It broke my heart when it wasn't real. And so, like I said, I definitely learned that lesson the hard way. And it was, I mean, that was a practical, effect. It looked, the pictures looked good and they were clear and everything. But it just was a costume.
Right. Well, and people can come out and say, oh, but Forrest is saying that he's skeptical of them too. And you know what? I don't fucking care, because this is what an actual credible researcher does. If you can't source the fucking images, if you can't investigate them properly, you keep them to your fucking self until you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. I
That's
agree.
what you actually do. You don't just throw them out there uh, to to get a bunch of clicks on your fucking YouTube video or whatever. No, you hold on to it until you can do your due diligence and actually properly investigate this, and then you come out with substantive fucking information.
Right.
And until you do, you're an asshole. So knock it off.
Because people found out very quickly that some of these photos happened to match a model, a puppet, the maybe the soft taxidermy that some guy on over on Twitter X whatever did. And like I said, it was pretty quick, and he even kind of feels like maybe they photoshopped his own photo, like edited his
Right.
own photos of this thing,
Could have.
and did that. And I probably, who knows?
The jaw
Um,
matches, because the way that the jaw had to be
mhm,
constructed on that model, when you open it, it has that same
that rectangular,
that like
yeah,
angled shape to its jaw,
yeah,
like when the mouth is open. So
yeah,
it makes
yeah.
sense.
So, I mean, if Forrest had just done just a tiny bit of like look into this, I mean, how easy would it have been for him to find this,
Yeah. And then the
Um,
video would be, hey, these pictures were sent to me, but look, it's entirely possible, nay likely, that they are actually just doctored images of this other stuff. And
right.
so, yeah, I get that that's not as fucking titillating to your audience, and people aren't going to like it as much because you're not selling them a mystery, but
Yeah.
at least it's fucking honest.
Yeah, I agree, So, that's where we are with it. I'm sorry to break your hearts. I get it. I want them to be real too. I want them to not be extinct. I want that information to come out. But again, we're still not going to prove it scientifically with video or photo evidence anymore. We're past that point now. We can't. I say it all the time. If we were ever going to prove a cryptid exists with photo or video evidence, then Bigfoot would be considered real, and it's not.
Right.
With the PG film, I mean, so I don't know.
Well,
It's
wait,
sad, but it
how
happens.
many
What?
red circles do I need to add to this photograph in like to make Bigfoot real?
Just one, I
Is it
guess.
one? Because I can
Um,
add up to 3 circles. No. I bet I could fit 5 circles in this
y-
photograph. And then Bigfoot has to be real.
that's the proof, right? That's what we're looking for. Is the red? If there's no red circle, well,
Just
that's what I
Right.
said
just to
before.
say, to quote Grover Krantz, I'm saying if you want something to be proven true, doesn't matter what kind of cryptid it is. I'm going to quote him from 1984, where he said, "If you encounter a Bigfoot body, uh, the hunter or the person who found it should cut off the biggest piece you can carry back. The head would be the best. If less must suffice, half of the lower jaw would be the single most useful part to prove authenticity.
There you go.
You need a physical piece."
Yep, and that's that. It doesn't matter what else you got. That's that. And that was you said 1984, so we even knew it then.
And if anything, we've gone backwards since then.
I
So
agree. Hard
hooray.
agree. Hard agree.
Congrats, cryptozoology. We did it. Like,
Yeah.
we did it. We're less credible than ever.
Yeah, you did it. You're a winner. You did it. And shout out to Nate Brislin. Fantastic person.
Hell,
Great
he's great.
research.
Oh, yeah.
Nate's
He's
awesome.
one of the least full of shit people I've ever met. And I'm not being sarcastic when I say that. He really is one of the most credible people out there.
Mhm.
If you see something he's posted, same thing with like Haley over at Cryptozoology Facts.
Mhm. Oh
Both
yeah.
of them. They know what the fuck they're talking about. They do the research. They have, they are rational people, and just good sources of information. And I just want to say, speaking of cryptids, I don't know if you heard that, but this weird quadruped just tore ass through the room here, bounced off of a wall, and then tore ass back out of the room. So I'm not sure what it was. I think it could have been some sort of squonk, maybe.
It sounded like a squonk in the background.
Right? A little bit, yeah.
Remember, Crit said you need the head. Get the head.
Yeah. Hold on. I got to go get my Glock so I can get a piece of this thing for science.
For science. It was probably a demon. Everything is. So
it could have been a demon. Yeah.
Clearly.
I mean, we'll never know because it's not like the fucking Vatican's going to look into it, right?
That's why we got Adam here.
Yes.
That's true.
It's his job.
You're up. It's your time to shine.
Here it is.
Let's see those miracles.
Show me your miracles. Speaking of demons or things that are demon-like, why don't we talk about our topic?
Oh, yeah. We should probably get around to that, huh?
We have a topic, yeah. That's okay. It happens. That's what this show is for. Hey, lots of good news and lots of fun stuff. We both investigated this weekend. That was the problem.
That's true. Well, the other thing, too, is, when you're talking about folkloric topics like we're going to get into today, it's not super long. Like, we're talking about ways to protect yourself against fairies. And, there are a good number of ways that have been listed throughout the centuries of fairy lore that we have accumulated to this point. But, it's not necessarily the kind of prolific topic that, say, Wisconsin Dogman is, where you would need 10 episodes to really go through all of it. So, that's fine. I even have, if you guys are interested, I have a couple actual fairy encounters that I've collected over the years that we've published to the website, so I can share those too.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, why don't we start with this, Tobias, since this is now it's your time to shine.
Oh boy.
I know, right? I'm trusting you. I'm scared. I think you're going to do great. Why don't we just do the basics first? What is a fairy?
Shit. Okay, yeah. Super easy answer to that question.
Totally simple.
I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody's ever known. What's interesting, actually, is the word fairy is French, and it replaced the Germanic elf. I don't remember exactly when that was. I would guess it would have been around the Norman conquest of Britain, but I don't know. Take that with a big grain of salt. But the words are synonymous. So fairies and elves are the same thing and always have been. And they're sort of blanket terms that get applied to anything unusual within certain cultures. So, let's say you're any Northern European culture, and anything at all weird happens, you're probably going to blame it on fairies. And you might even have a variety of words for that. You might call them fairies. You might call them whites. You might even get specific and start talking about certain, other types of entities. You might say a troll, or in Eton, or a brownie, or a bogart, or a bogey, or a red cap, or a fucking pixie. Who knows? But fundamentally, the term fairy, again, has come to supplant the word elf. But either one of them is really just an umbrella term for anything that we can't immediately understand, And so, for instance, something a lot of people don't know who aren't into this stuff is a lot of ghost stories end up categorized as fairy stories. There's a ton of overlap there because people can't ever agree on what fairies are, right? So are they half fallen angels? Are they the children that Eve hid from God? Are they the maggots that crawled out of the flesh of the dead god Ymir? Nobody fucking knows.
I've heard unbaptized babies. as well.
Unbaptized babies, absolutely. Yeah, are they spirits of the dead? Again, nobody knows. And so you get, or the popular one now, if you're a neo-pagan weirdo, is nature spirits. But frankly, like that shit is ridiculous, and I barely even like to talk about it because it's sort of the part of the I don't want to say like Tolkienization, but it's like a similar phenomenon where like fantasy has kind of taken over this subject, and so people have a tendency to kind of categorize things according to their personal beliefs and fantasies and things. And so nature spirit is sort of the explanation du jour of fucking fairies in neo-pagan, modern conversation. But I don't agree with that. I think that's ridiculous, and I think it's very reductionist, and I think it shows a very scant sort of understanding of the nature of fairy lore and the ubiquitousness of fairies in anomalous phenomena, over the past 1,000+ years, right? So, anyway, that's fairies. So here we are.
That was pretty good for a concise answer. So I'm impressed, I gotta say.
Thank you.
You know, I think that the person that does fairies correctly, in the best way, are actually the Japanese, and they call them yokai. And it's essentially the same thing. It's pretty much any and every spiritual entity that you could possibly think of.
Right.
It's what it is. So we're not talking about like Tinkerbell, right? Is that what we're not defending ourselves against her, are we? Because I think I could take her.
Well, I mean, it's not as though most commonly, I would say that type of diminutive winged fairy is not often reported, or it doesn't feature a lot in folklore. But it's not, it's not completely unheard of or without precedent. Although the wings, I think, are a relatively new addition. But if you think of things like, pixies are have always been said to be pretty small, or many types of household spirits. So you've got your brownies and your like a Nisa or a Tomta or something. They're usually pretty short. Dwarves, of course, everybody knows dwarves, and they're said to be short. Gnomes, same thing.
What about Pukwudgies?
Pukwudgie, well, that's where you start getting into, because like I tend to, maybe to my own detriment, focus on the cultures I'm most familiar with. So
Sure.
think like northwestern Europe, right? So Great Britain and Ireland and the Scandinavian countries, all of the various Germanic countries, really, or Germanic and Celtic, and so you see, like you mentioned, you see a lot of parallels between their fairies and other sort of spiritual entities from other cultures. So you get into like North American indigenous cultures, and you've got Pukwudgies a little closer to home for Adam and I. You have the Memagwezi, which are hairy, and I hope I said that right, are hairy, diminutive river spirits that are similar to a lot of the other sort of fairies. Really, actually, very similar to like Pukwudgies, honestly, in the way they are described. But so fairies are all fucking over the place. Sometimes they just look like people. Sometimes they're super hot people. Sometimes they're super ugly people.
Oh,
Takes all kinds.
it takes a village,
It
a fairy
does.
village. I love that. Let me ask you a personal question real quick. Besides pulling your reports here, how much of this are you just pulling out of memory?
Everything so far.
I'm not surprised. Good for
Yeah.
you.
I spent a lot of time thinking about this. So,
You need one of those montages again of you thinking about fairies, just
yeah,
walking
right.
around the house doing normal things.
Yep. Just
Um,
like me doing the thinker in the backyard. I've got
yeah.
my fist on my chin, just thinking about fairies.
Hmm. And then, Adam, you said that you don't really have a lot of personal history looking into these topics. Is that right?
I have like a very when it comes to like fairies or fae folk or whatever you want to call it, like I have a very surface level. Like I know there's the different classes, like the house ones and the ones that outside, and ones in the water and things like that. And there's apparently, I don't know how much of this is true. It's just things that I've picked up. There's supposedly like two councils, a good one and a bad one.
Hmm.
Some are cool and clean your house, and if you offend them, they'll never come back. Stuff like that. But when you start getting into the like really breakdown, then it's kind of like I have no idea. Like I only know like just a certain number of different like classes, like the brownie or the leprechaun or banshee or things like that. And once you get past that, I'm just like I have no idea. You could just make up a word and I'd be like, yeah, that sounds like a fairy. I believe that.
So,
Well, same.
speaking of, okay, so you're talking about good and bad fairies. So you've got the Seelie court and the unseelie court. And it's sort of, like the difference between light and darkness, above ground and below, more of a yin and yang kind of thing, I think, than necessarily um, strict strict good or evil, because every fairy is reportedly, at least by its nature, capricious, and we see that in modern day paranormal phenomena as well, right? Where sometimes you meet a saucer occupant and they give you fucking space pancakes, and sometimes you meet one and they give you the anal probe.
I knew that was
um, and I mean, depending on what kind of mood you're in and whether or not you give enthusiastic consent, I guess I can't tell you which one is the good one and which one's the bad one, but it's a mixed bag, you know.
that is interesting. So is that canon then to fairy lore?
What? Which part?
The having the Seelie and the unseelie, as you said, the
Yeah,
good and the
well,
bad.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's more part of the Celtic tradition.
Okay. Okay. Well, Adam specifically, Tobias wanted to know about how to protect yourself against the bad fairy. I'm assuming the bad fairies are
Well, that's
there.
just it. They're all capable of dealing out weal and woe. It really just kind of depends. Like, for instance, a brownie becomes a Bogart if you piss it off.
Okay.
So brownies are helpful household spirits who will help you like clean your house and shit, right? But if you piss one off, it becomes like a vengeful poltergeist, and that's bad news for you, because even moving won't get rid of it.
See, now I've heard in my very quick research, like I said, I was doing a lot of sketchy websites to find
Oh,
some stuff
good,
out. The
very
way you
credible.
can piss off a brownie is if you give it clothes,
Yes,
you give it clothing, but if you want to
yep,
keep it happy, you give it milk and honey.
yes, or fresh cream is also good. Uh, Fairies seem to love honey and dairy products, which who doesn't, I guess, right? But I think that speaks to what my first point was going to be: is the most effective way to defend yourself from a fairy is to not piss it off in the first place. And so, if you see some sign of fairy presence in your home, so chores being done seemingly by themselves, that could be animals being cared for, hearths being cleaned, grain being threshed, crops being brought in, and all of this other stuff. Um, then leave a little something out. Don't talk about them. You don't want to talk about them, but you could leave out a little fresh cream and some honey, Personally, what I like to do around Yule every year is I'll leave some mead out on the hearth. Just I'm going to put this mead out here. If anybody wants it, it's here.
Oh
Very
yeah.
very good Yule to you and yours.
Well, everybody loves to drink, so
That's true. Nobody doesn't, right? Like except for squares, presumably.
right. Losers. Ugh, sober. What do you
Oh,
mean?
some poor alcoholic right now who's like in recovery is crying a single tear hearing that. I don't think you're a loser. I think you're very brave, and I'm rooting for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, but yeah, no. So like, really, just finding a way to live peacefully, with fairies is your best bet. That's why we have all of these different colloquial terms for fairies, right? Like you might call them the fair folk, or our good neighbors, or like the people of peace, because people didn't want to speak bad about them, and you didn't really want to talk about them directly for fear of accidentally offending them. And so, what you would do is, if you had to refer to them at all, you would use one of those terms, which of course are very, very complimentary, in the hopes then that you would not upset them.
Interesting. So we can't call them by their actual names, but by their generalization? Is that what you're saying?
Well, it's just coming up with a nice term to try to, get them on your good side. So instead of just saying, oh, the local elves or whatever, you would say like, oh, our good neighbors are at it again. Just because you're trying to be polite to something that could make your life a living hell if it wanted to.
I'm going to
Also,
refer to all of them as my best friend. So
That'll do it.
also, if you
That'll do it.
know their actual name, you have power over them.
not
Yeah.
like their species, but their name.
Like Rumpelstiltskin.
Right. So
Yes.
that's why he kind of went away, is because we all know his name and can utilize it.
Right.
I-
Yeah. No, there are plenty of fairy tales like that. Absolutely.
So I found a bunch, and I actually I made a Word document and I sorted them, and it's called Ways to Ward Off the Fae. And now I think after this episode, I'm going to keep this just in case I need it eventually sometime in my life. But I broke
never
it
know.
down into categories of iron, plants, how to protect children, and avoidance.
Oh. Yes.
Nice. Well,
I think
iron is the big one, right? Like that's the one I think most people are familiar with. Although it doesn't have to be just iron. Steel will do the trick as well. And there are various hypotheses as to why that is, but my favorite is just what iron and then later steel, when we got the bright idea to combine iron with carbon to make it, more flexible, um, is that it represents this huge leap in technology for mankind. So if you can picture somebody outfitted in like bronze armor and weaponry fighting somebody with iron, or, oh God forbid, steel, that steel would cut them to fucking pieces. It would seem like magic. It really would. It would seem like this fucking magical weapon blessed by the gods themselves to cleft your puny, miserable bronze armor in twain like butter. And so we put a lot of importance on that because it was a big deal.
Also,
It was,
also, you just
go ahead.
said given by the gods or something along that term.
Yes.
They also believe too, from what I read, that when meteors would hit the earth and eventually someone would stumble upon them and harvest that iron from the meteor, it already had natural magnetic properties, and the magnetism in them thus becoming a lodestone. But
Yeah.
iron, it's a magical item. And
Yeah, it would seem that way.
yeah, so the magnetism in it, you now have powers that could ward off a magical being, and they didn't want to get involved in you having the ability to use magic against them.
Absolutely. I mean, and you would see iron and steel as sort of as being in like the province of deities, right? Like if you think about it, well, the big one that comes to mind for me is like Thor's hammer, right? And that ties in directly to fairy lore when you start to consider like Scandinavian and well, really just all kinds of Germanic mythology featuring a Thor or a character like Thor wielding that hammer, which of course is this big iron hammer, and he just used it to smash the shit out of like giants and ettins and trolls and all of these fucking fairies, right? Just beat their asses constantly with it. And I think that illustrates pretty handily the importance of iron in these cultures, and and where it was elevated to. It was this thing that was so great, like so useful, so important that even the gods used it. Like they even the gods would have dwarves fashion these iron implements for them to use because that's how badass being able to use iron and steel and shit is. Like it's that cool.
So I wrote down 4 of the ones that jumped out the most to me for iron. The first one being the iron horseshoe. Everyone knows the iron horseshoe. You put it up, protect your home, good luck, bless it, things like that. They said if you want to make the iron horseshoe more powerful and become more of a threat to fairies, you use iron nails to fix it to the door, above the door or above the fireplace. Another one is if you are traveling, but you're not able to hang a horseshoe, you carry around 2 iron nails, 1 in each pocket, because it essentially, you are nailing yourself to the earth, which would prevent a fairy from being able to lift you up and carry you off. If you wanted to use the iron nail as a weapon, you would find a fairy footprint and you would hammer the iron nail into the footprint, which would cause immense agony to the fairy until it was able to find the nail and remove it from its footprint.
Which is sympathetic magic at work, everybody. Which is a whole different episode, but still cool.
If you have an axe, an iron-headed axe, if you sleep with it under your pillow, protects you from very mischief. If you stumbled upon a gateway into the fairy world, as long as you placed an iron knife within the entrance of the quote-unquote portal, it would prevent the portal from closing behind you, so you would be able to leave the fairy world. And if you hammered iron railroad spikes into the ground at the 4 corners of your property, it was thought to create a protective barrier against any fae who wished to do you harm.
Oh, yeah. And honestly, a lot of what you just talked about, now you'll see the same thing, but they'll use different implements. So instead of like an axe head, you might hear about, placing scissors under the pillow of a child to prevent them being snatched away by the fairies or something, right? But what's important is that it's iron or steel. Like that's what's important. Or you can like nail like iron nails into your door or around your door to prevent them from entering your home. And I like to think of it as just kind of showing off how much iron you have. Where you're just like, dude, look how much fucking iron I have. I'm ironing nails, like I'm hammering iron nails into my door. That's how much I have. You come in here, I'm gonna hit you with so many fucking heavy iron weapons that you will be so fucked.
Is that why they call it? Is that where getting nailed came from? Right, you're more likely to have a partner if you have lots of iron nails.
I mean, it is now. That's what I'm going to tell people.
It's now officially part of fairy canon.
Yeah,
right.
It's on the books.
But also, iron again was associated with the gods because it and steel because it was again it was a big deal. It was a big technological improvement, and so it was only natural for it to be associated with like these numinous beings, and so having iron or displaying iron could show a connection to the gods. It might show favor. There are a lot of different sort of speculated reasons behind why iron would have this effect. Of course, now like it's so ingrained within the lore itself, I don't think people even question it. But to me, what's fascinating is all of the potential like anthropological explanations that exist for why iron itself was had this elevated position within our collective consciousness. Like why it was so important.
Like many of these stories,
Sure.
One thing I did read is if you had a steel knife and you were able to cut a fairy or a fae, whatever one term you want to use, it would inflict a cut upon them which would never heal and which would slowly poison them and cause their death.
I do always have a pocket knife on me, not for that reason, but now just in case. Another good one with a knife is, if you've got a steel knife or something, and you're out and about, and you're being harassed by fairies, you can lie down and stick the knife into the ground above your head, and you will be protected. You can also use that steel knife to draw a circle around you through which no fairy can cross. So keep that in your back pocket just in case.
So if
One of
you
our
make
listeners is going to be out in the woods, and they're going to do this, and the fucking fairy is going to cross the circle, and they're going to blame us.
I don't know what they did wrong, but I mean,
where'd you buy your knife?
They did an oval on accident.
Oh yeah, well, it's not called a fairy oval, is it?
So then that kind of leads into the next one that's on my list of cutting into the grass. So now that leads into plants, and there's a certain number of plants that
Sure.
fairies are not allowed to interact with, and they are not allowed to cross because these plants are imbued with magical properties. They say like the rowan tree, blackberry stalks, boxwood. They were all believed to act as fairy deterrents. Other plants such as gorse, I don't know if I'm saying that right, rosemary, dill, and St. John's wort were believed to ward off fairies who were intent on stealing children while they were sleeping. You could hang marsh marigolds or primroses over a barn door to keep your horses safe so they were not allowed to ride them in the night. If you carried moss collected from a churchyard and you carried it in your pocket, you could walk freely through zones inhabited by fairies and they were not allowed to get close to you. And then four-leaf clovers would allow you to see any fairy in its true form, but you were only allowed to see them once per clover. So to combat this, to get past this one and done rule, you could sew a bunch of four-leaf clovers into a tiny bag and wear it around your neck, and each clover in the bag would allow you to see one fairy, and you would be able to see past their glamours and magical disguises.
You mentioned St. John's wort, but St. John's wort can also be made into an ointment that can be applied to your eyes to allow you to see fairies and all inhabitants of the other world.
Is it just until it wears off?
I have no idea. Maybe. I've never tried it.
You should do that.
We should do that.
You should, yeah.
So when we go to the ER, just remember, like, yeah, he put St. John's wort in his eyes. I don't know.
I wanted to see the fairies.
I mean, it's just another Tuesday at the ER, so I don't think they'll be too surprised by that. That all sounds very, specifically what Adam just said, very Appalachian. I don't know why, but
because it was largely like Scotch-Irish people who settled that area, and they brought their fairy beliefs with them.
Okay, so there was something to what I was saying. Yeah, it definitely sounds. They've got all their granny magic there, and that it's heavily stuff like that.
You can draw a direct line right back to the old world where those beliefs actually originated. So
Now, I want to hear, Adam mentioned protecting children. Before we talk about protecting children, why are the fairies so interested in children to begin with?
Well, that's a great question. And again, it's one that people have different answers for. I think the most popular is usually that the fairies are a dwindling race of beings, and so they have difficulty um, replenishing their own population, and so it is necessary for them to steal human children, and oftentimes they will replace human children with their own um, disabled offspring, you know,
That's
which
terrible.
I know. And the worst part is that what this really is, and changelings, I think that's a large, like largely in Irish tradition.
Sure.
Um, and what this really led to was handicapped kids just getting the shit abused out of them, which is not a laughing matter and very much was a horrible thing to have happen to anybody. But I think that was a way for people to try to come to grips with something like that affecting their family, and then maybe in a way try to justify some of the feelings and emotions that might have come around during a time when having an extra mouth to feed that couldn't also provide for the family was a big enough hindrance where you had to seriously consider your options. Um, yeah, and so I mean, it led to a lot of unfortunate tragedy, but yeah, I mean that's the most popular folkloric explanation that I am aware of is that yeah, and is that they're just sort of a dying breed. And what's interesting about that too is you once again can see the influence of fairy lore on ufology when you look at things like uh, the abduction experience and alien human hybrids and that kind of reported experimentation. Often, what you would get, I mean, real as I remember this being like a big thing in like the '90s, especially, right? So, like, you would often hear, of course, the narrative being that genetically there's something wrong with these alien visitors and they need fresh DNA. They need our good old fashioned fucking homemade human DNA to replenish their breeding stock. And that's why they had to take us and start making alien human hybrids or whatever. And it's just interesting because that's the same shit people were saying about fairies centuries earlier.
Yeah, that is interesting. I think that's still very much a theory that's on the table. So yeah, definitely very interesting. So how do we protect our kids from these baby stealing fairies?
All the normal ways. Like you do. Now, I mentioned earlier you could put, like a pair of scissors or something under their pillow, and that'll protect them while they're sleeping. A red ribbon tied around their chest is another way that can protect them. You can also, if you've got horses that are being elf ridden or something, you can tie red ribbons in their mane or tail, or just put a red ribbon on them somewhere. Any animal, really, and that will protect them from fairies as well. So, and then all your normal precautions are a good idea.
Three of the ones that I found were if you have a newborn baby, it was believed that if you hammered a row of iron nails into the headboard of the bed in which the new mother and child slept, it would
Sure.
create a barrier around the bed. If you didn't have nails, this is the one that I like. If you didn't have nails, you could take a pair of pants that belonged to the child's father and just hang it off of the foot of the bed in which the child would sleep, as the fairies would be repulsed by the sight of the man's pants.
I mean, if he wore them like working out in a field all day,
You could
makes sense.
you could use you could also use the father's shirt and wrap the newborn in it at night to protect them. And this last one I found, which is kind of gross, it said that urine from any member that resided in the home, it did not matter if it was male or female, could be collected and sprinkled around the front door of the home or around the doorway into the child's room, because it was believed that fairies found the smell of human urine to be highly offensive.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because excrement is also mentioned as a way to sort of ward off fairies. But I'm like, dude, if you're just going to start smearing shit on stuff, like, nobody's going to want to come to your house.
Exactly.
It's not just going to be fairies.
You could call me, you could call me a fairy. I don't care. I'm not coming to your house if I've known that you've sprinkled piss all over your doorways. Like,
right.
This might be how I find out I am from the fairy world. I don't want to go in there.
Almost certainly will be. Well, and the other interesting thing about that too is, and I meant to mention this before when I started off with ways to not piss off fairies in the first fucking place. Watch where you pee. Like, if you're outside, say you've been having a couple beers, maybe you got a fire going, you got some buddies over, you don't want to go all the way inside to take a leak. Well, stop, think again, because if you accidentally pee on a house, like on a house spirit or something, and you never know when you will because you can't see them, that's a surefire way to piss one off.
Just imagine from the fairy's point of view, it wakes up, it gets out of its little bed, it makes like a good breakfast, and it's like, yeah, gonna start a good day of work cleaning this house, and it steps out its little fairy door, and some giant just pisses all over it.
That's exactly right. And so that's how you get a Bogart, folks. That's how you go from a brownie to a Bogart.
Don't pee on your brownies.
It's like, the weather didn't call for rain today. Oh, man.
It's like in that scene in American Pie where Stifler gets peed on.
Oh.
Yes.
And, who could blame them, right? I would be very upset, too, if I was pissed on, and would probably exact revenge from that point going forward.
It's like, I curse your entire bloodline for peeing on me.
But that's why you got to rub the St. John's wort in your eye or whatever first.
Yeah, so you can see him, or just go inside and use the toilet, you fucking savage. It's not that hard.
But if you put 4 iron nails around your property, you can pee wherever you want.
Wherever, yeah.
Well, that's fair. And that actually brings up a good point too, is, do you want to make sure that there aren't any fairies in or around your home? That's not necessarily a good thing.
Now, would that just keep them out, or would it trap anything within that boundary? Would they get stuck in there?
I don't know. I would assume that they would get stuck if they can't cross the boundary, if they happen to be inside when you did that. But I would guess too that they would probably just leave immediately when they saw you doing it. And they will see you doing it because they see everything.
They're like obsessed with us. I don't know.
So you hammer. Well, they have to be in the way that, like, we pay close attention to wildlife that shares our fucking, our space.
I like to think of the fairies. They remind me of the borrowers. Like, that's how I like to picture them. You remember the borrowers?
Oh,
the little people?
They're like 3 inches tall. Yeah.
I don't know what the borrowers are.
Delightful children's books, actually, from when I was a little kid.
They made a movie out of it, too. I think it starred John Goodman.
Nice. But yeah, they're just little people that live in the walls, and they will use our junk that we don't really care about for stuff.
Interesting. Yeah. Wow. So I will share. I saw a little person one time, and I am not going to get into the full details of it. I will be going over that on the sister show, Fringes of Reality, when I share my encounters. But I did. I was 12 years old, and I was inside of going to a Meijer bathroom. And when I was walking into the bathroom, if anybody doesn't know, Meijer is like a big department store. And they have a bathroom right in the front door. And so I was there with my family. I was going into the bathroom, and I saw a little person. It couldn't have been any taller than my knee. run from the left side, which is where the sinks were, to the right side where the stalls were, and run into the stall. And I don't know where it went. I don't really remember too many details about what it looked like, because it was a long time ago, and I have some trauma kind of surrounding that whole situation. But of course, I immediately left and went back to my family and told them that I saw a leprechaun. And because in my, kid mind, I didn't know how else to explain what I had just seen. I know that it appeared male, and that's about it, and that it was very small. And I don't know what the hell it was doing in the Meyer bathroom, but they thought I was crazy, so I went to counseling and stuff. So
Hmm.
I'll elaborate way more on that encounter, like I said, over on the other show. But yeah, I don't know. It was weird. It was fucking weird.
Sure. Well, I mean, people definitely report those kinds of sightings. I was certain that I had seen a fucking troll when I was in grade school. A buddy of mine were playing in this really really tiny woods, like really just kind of a copse of trees, really, by our grade school, and we had kind of made a fort back there. And I swear we both saw it because we reacted to it. And there was behind this bush, we could see the head of this creature, and it looked big, and it had like this big nose and these big ears and these huge teeth, and it was just kind of looking at us. And we just got the fuck out of there. We just ran away, of course.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it looked like a troll, like you read about. So I don't know. It's weird.
Weird stuff. Definitely. Yeah, and I talk about it on the we did talk about it on the Patreon. So that story is there, and it goes into more detail just about being a child experiencer and not being taken seriously. And obviously, because how the fuck would I feel if my kid came to me and said the same shit? I mean, me
Right.
being me, I'd be like, really? Where?
Yeah, exactly.
I'd
Okay, so we
immediately,
got to build a
yeah,
leprechaun trap.
can you draw
Right.
it? Like that's what I would ask first thing. Draw it.
Right. Yeah. Show me what you saw. Yeah. So I mean, but I could also understand a bunch of adults looking at that and going, "You did not see a leprechaun." You know. I could get both sides of it, but yeah, it was just an interesting. And had never really, I mean, knew about anything like that. I wasn't like a fantasy kid or anything, so it's not like this was a part of like my library already. Because I just wasn't that way. I don't know. So that's my story.
I've never seen anything that I know of that I could say is Fey like, but it brings up a memory that I have of just a few months ago, and I posted this on my Facebook. I remember, and I'm not sure you two might have seen it. You might have come across it. I think Tobias, you might have even commented on it. But my
Hmm.
youngest daughter, who is 7, she was 6 at the time, and she just out of nowhere just made a comment that she said at night this tall, like white thing with no face would come up to her window and just like stare at her as she was going to sleep, and then it would just leave. And she said it would show up every night, and then recently, like it just stopped. It hasn't come back.
Wow.
And it's the first time she told me this, unprovoked, out of nowhere. It's just like that's the most terrifying thing I've ever heard.
Is she on a second story?
No, we have a first story window. Uh, she says it would just walk up to her window and look in there and just stand there, and then it would walk away.
Well, fuck that guy. I'd be
For real.
angry. Peeping Tom weirdo.
But it's that fear where
Yeah.
you're just like, I can't show her that I am scared as well.
Right. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
She just said it very nonchalant. It's like it didn't even bother her. It's like, yeah, he comes up here, he looks at me, watches until I go to sleep, and then he like walks away.
And then he leaves. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if she, later in life has other experiences similar. Being a weird parent, our first reaction is like, oh God, there's something to this. But like normal parents, I think are just like, okay.
Right. Kids tell
Unfortunately,
stories.
they do. Kids do tell stories. But there are, I think, definitely instances where they don't. I mean, I know mine wasn't. I know what I
Right.
experienced.
No, I know. Yeah.
And I know, so I don't know. Anyway, it makes you question a lot of things.
It does.
Right. No,
I
I get it. I mean, as somebody who was not believed when they were a kid, having like multiple terrifying paranormal experiences, like I get it. That's just the typical parent attitude is, oh, well, kids tell stories. And
Right.
sometimes kids do tell stories, but sometimes they don't.
Sometimes they don't.
Sometimes that shit is real, or at least it's real to them.
Right.
Sure felt real to me, you know?
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I have one more category that I wrote, and I just called this one avoidance. And
Excellent.
this is various ways to just avoid them altogether if you come across them. Like if you're
Okay.
put in a position where you're like, ah shit, it's a fairy. These are things you are supposed to do. So this first one says, if chased by fairies, it's said that you can escape them by leaping across running water, and the most effective water is a stream that is flowing in a southward direction.
Oddly specific, but all
Yes.
right.
Which is just like vampires, so that's worth noting. They can't cross
You see
water.
some overlap. Actually, garlic is also commonly listed as a plant that will ward off fairies. So
The next one, it says wearing your clothes inside out was believed to help ward off the fae, and it would help you from being pixie led, which is being led astray in the woods by pixies to become lost. It says the
yes,
reason for this is because it was thought that wearing your clothes the wrong way would ultimately confuse the fae, since these beings were considered to be mischievous, and turning clothes inside out would be something that they could do within their wheelhouse. So if they encountered something that was unexpected and was already going against the norm, it would cause them to become confused, and it would grant you time to escape any enchantments that they were going to place on you. It was also thought that if you believed you were under a pixie spell, if you wanted to break the spell, all you had to do was take off your jacket and turn it inside out, and the enchantment would be broken.
It's like in The Walking Dead where they have to wear like pieces of dead bodies in order to like fool the zombies. They're like, "Oh, you're one of us. It's fine."
I just imagine like in my mind like these two pixies are like, here comes that guy. Watch this, and they fly up to him and they're like, wait, holy shit, what are you doing? And the guy's just like, what are you doing? The pixie's like, there's something wrong here. What is it? And you just like sneak away. You're like, haha, stupid
right.
pixies.
The other thing you can do is if you come across a fairy circle, where fairies are dancing and convorting, you could turn a glove inside out and throw it in the circle, and they'll all flee. So just remember that.
They're like, "What? What is this?"
Like
Yeah.
these avoidance ones are very specific, and I want to know who originally thought of them, because these are interesting. Because the next one
Drunk
is
Europeans like 700 or 800 years ago.
this one says bread was also thought to be a good deterrent to some fairies. It was said if you kept a piece of hard bread in your pocket before going to a place that was known to be infested with fairies, it would keep them away because it had something to do with the smell. That's all I could find. Something to do with the smell. The bread method also goes a step further, and it was said that you should not bring a baby outside after dark unless there was a small piece of bread wrapped up in their bib or their dress.
Does hard bread smell different than not hard bread?
See,
I don't know.
I don't think so, but there's so many things. It's like other fairies were said to really like bread.
I mean, now I want some bread.
Well, you're not a fairy unless
I
you're
might
a
be.
different kind that likes bread.
I'm the kind that likes bread.
Um, uh, the the next one says some ancient beliefs say that if a fairy is attempting to carry you away, all you need to do is reach out and grab onto some grass that is still firmly rooted in the ground. By doing so, the fairy will need to let you go, as they are not permitted to harm even a single blade of grass.
Ooh, okay, that's good. But aren't you just gonna piss it off when you accidentally pull a piece of grass out?
But also, like, fairy circles are a thing, and they tramp grass down to form those. This is contradictory.
That one thing I've noticed is that when it comes to all this stuff, it all contradicts itself.
Of course it does.
All of it does. But the last one I have is wearing or carrying a hagstone, which for those who don't know is a small stone with a hole that was naturally made through it by erosion. By wearing the stone, it's said to grant protection to the owner of the stone. And if you choose to wear it, you are supposed to attach it with a red thread, just like you were saying earlier, Tobias, because this color is said to be disliked by many of the bad fae. Along with protection, the hagstone also allows the owner to view into the other world when peering through the small hole, and it allows them to see the fae folk. It also allows them to see other magical beings, witches, and even spirits of the dead.
You don't even have to put St. John's wort in your eyes. You can just get a hagstone. That's the way to do it. Well, speaking of wearing things, now, one of the things, of course, most common, or within the past several centuries, post conversion to Christianity, is, of course, people would say wear a cross or make the sign of the cross. If you're in a situation with fairies to ward them off. Prior to that, of course, you would make the sign of the hammer, Thor's hammer, or wear like jewelry in the form of Thor's hammer. Like I have a little Mjolnir that I wear around my neck, and it is made of steel, actually. And that served two purposes, actually. I should say it worked on two levels. Like one, if it's made of iron or steel, that's already good because that's supposed to ward off evil things, right? But two, if it's in the shape of Thor's hammer, then the association there is if you fuck with a follower of Thor, he's going to show up and beat your ass with his giant hammer. So best not to bother doing that.
Yeah, I wouldn't risk that at all. I'd be like,
right.
No, thanks.
Damn.
It's true. Yeah.
Wow. Thor's hammer. Yeah.
An interesting thing I learned while looking at all this stuff up. I didn't know that mermaids were considered fairies.
Yeah. What did you think they were?
I thought they were just mermaids.
Oh, did you not hear like the first part of this? Everything's a fairy.
No, I did, but it's like my brain for the longest time since I was a child, a mermaid is its own thing, a fairy is its own thing. And to combine those two, it's just like I don't like that.
I agree. I don't like that either.
Well, too bad.
That is the proper answer, but you're right. I understand where Adam's coming from for sure. But yeah, definitely. I think mermaid. Well, yeah, right. When I think of mermaids, I think of people that live in the water.
Something that should not be easily influenced by bread or iron nails.
Well, what about all of pretty much everything that people claim to know about mermaids comes from the same kinds of stories that we use to inform our opinions on fairies. Like they're just very, very similar.
I guess so too, because they say that, one of the ways that a fairy can lead you into the woods is when you hear music in the distance and then you want to find the source of the music.
Yeah, fairy music, sure.
But while mermaids do the same things to sailors and boats, you're attracted to their song to figure out where it's coming from. So I guess it makes sense. I don't like to say it, but I guess you're right.
Sure, or like capturing a mermaid and then they have to grant you wishes for you to release them. Like there's a ton of overlap there. And it should be no surprise because we've had spirits of the fucking water as long as we've had, spirits of every other natural anything surrounding us, be that the sky, the woods, hills. Of course, fairies on land are often said to dwell within these large fairy mounds. And we've had fairies and spirits associated with inland water like rivers and lakes and streams and such forever. So, applying that to the ocean, it's not a stretch for me.
So the only things that I find consistent about what is being said here is that fairies can treat you well, but you don't want to necessarily attempt to attract a fairy on purpose, because they're really easy to piss off, and it's just safe for you to just go ahead and assume that there are fairies around at all times.
Yes.
One thing I
Correct.
read too, it's like if you believe that you can catch a fairy because you want it to grant you wishes or things like that, it will always fail. The fairy will always escape. The fairy will always tell its fairy friends, and then your bloodline will be plagued for the rest of its, time on Earth. So
Forever.
it's best to just not try.
Yeah, I mean, it's like making a deal with the devil, you know? Actually, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this. Darby O'Gill and the Little People was one of my favorite movies growing up. It's from 1959, but, it would get replayed on television all the time, and now you can just watch it. So I
Yes,
do.
on Disney Plus.
Oh, it's the fucking best. I love that movie.
I've never
And yeah,
even heard
one
of
of
it.
the things that Darby does, like he captures the king of the leprechauns, and he keeps trying to get wishes out of him, and it never works out quite right. But then they become friends, so that's nice.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I feel like leprechauns are probably the most well-known type of fairy.
yeah.
That's
I mean, they're
that's
way
just
up
me.
there. Yeah, I would. I think that's fair. I mean, just from St. Patrick's Day alone, a lot of people don't know that leprechauns, like their job is not gold hoarders. They're cobblers. They make shoes.
They also wore red. They didn't wear green.
Yeah.
Where did green come from? Do we know?
I
That
don't know.
was because of the adoption of green by Ireland. And so when you and I know there's a reason, and it's kind of like on the tip of my fucking tongue, but I can't think of it completely, and so I don't want to embarrass myself, which usually isn't a consideration for me on the show, but I figured this one time I'm not going to embarrass myself.
And
Um,
it's going to be over leprechauns.
Yeah, right. Oh, totally. Yeah, I would. I mean, I take fairies very seriously, and so, and so no, like it's because of the association with between the color green and Ireland, and I don't remember when that came about. But I'll think of it later and tell Emily, and then she'll pretend to care. Anyway, and
maybe
so
maybe next St. Patrick's Day we'll cover leprechauns. I don't know.
yeah, but my point is the modern image of the leprechaun is born out of American racism towards the Irish.
Gotcha.
And that's why they are depicted as being in green, is because this was just like a cultural icon, from Ireland that was used to be shitty to Irish people. And so, of course, you would dress up leprechauns in green to so everybody knew you were talking about Irish people, and that's also why they would be portrayed as drunk and constantly getting in fist fights and so on and so forth.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
at
Well,
least within the past couple hundred years on this side of the Atlantic.
I feel like obviously my knowledge of leprechauns come from the movies. So,
Nice. The Jennifer Aniston classic Leprechaun.
of course, that's where all Warwick Davis. That's when I think of a leprechaun. That's what I think of.
He
Even
is the
though I've
real
seen one.
star, and Warwick Davis is a national treasure.
Absolutely, 100%. Which come to my surprise, they're not. Those movies aren't entirely inaccurate, so that's neat. Like you
True.
said, they're cobblers, and that's what they did in the first. Threw their shoes at him, and he had to clean them. That was
That's what you do.
that was a bit. So, anyway, any other knowledge that we need about protecting ourselves from fairies or the fae? Or, I mean, what's your personal advice that you would give somebody interested in pursuing these entities?
Don't.
Don't do
Don't.
it. I've often thought about it, and I never do. I don't know why, but when we do a night hike through a place like the Kettle or another outdoor area, it's always in the back of my mind that I would like to pick up just like a little bottle of whiskey, a little bottle of honey, and just leave it there before we go on the trail, just to see what happens. Like there's that part of me that's just like, maybe there is something.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. I would totally be down with bringing little offerings and things. I've done it before. I don't remember any like noticeable effect, but I think it's something that you would want to do consistently just to see.
Yeah, who knows what would happen? But
Sure.
ultimately, I think what we figured out here, if the best way to protect yourself from the wrath of the Fae is to completely cover your house in iron nails and piss, hang pants at the edge of your bed, hold onto the grass, and just start stabbing in the air with an iron knife. And that's that. They can't get you. They cannot
Right.
get you at that point.
That's true.
You got all bases covered.
Everything.
Totally safe.
And when you're out in the woods, you might as well just go ahead and just pee your pants right as soon as you get there, instantly. I think that would be useful.
Because
Done and done.
that one brownie who left your house because he got peed on, he moved to the woods to just take it easy. And his first day there, he wakes up and someone walking along the trail pisses on him.
Oh, he's just like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
I was going to leave it alone. Poor Brownie. Oh, poor guy.
It's true.
Yeah, I think it's just safe to assume that they're here all the time. I think that's a good assumption.
Tobias, do you know why they're called brownies? Is there a reason for it, or?
I mean, I'm sure there is. I don't remember off the top of my head. I can try to.
It just seems like such a different name compared to like a lot of the other ones.
Well, they all have kind of weird names.
But none of them are called like yellowy, or
No, I got it right here. I wrote an article on brownies a while ago. Because of their brown clothing and skin.
It's just very fact of the matter. Okay.
Yeah, it's very on the nose. Yeah,
they're just brown.
right.
I think of them
They're
being
called brownies because they're brown.
I think of them being very jolly because I think of like homemade brownies, and I associate they're just very happy little dudes.
Well, they are supposed to be really nice. They'll clean your house and shit. They're small, scruffy little men with wrinkled faces, dressed in tattered old clothes. But they like those old clothes, so don't you start acting like you're better than them, giving them new clothes.
Now, because from what we've talked about, the Fae is very temperamental. What if you accidentally dropped a piece of clothing by them? You didn't give it to them, but it landed within their vicinity.
Is it brownie sized?
Maybe?
Why would you have that?
I don't know.
Exactly. So it seems unlikely. I mean, unless you've got like this collection of doll clothing or something.
If you know you're being harassed by fairies, maybe you might just keep a supply of, fairy-sized clothing in your home to get rid of them.
If you know it'll make him mad. See, that's just it. It's not going to get rid of the brownie. It's just going to make him hate you. And then he's going to fuck with you all the time.
Does the Bogart look the same as a brownie?
Yes,
or does it change?
Exactly the same, just different name.
It's
So it's like an oxen. An oxen is not a different type of cow. It's just a bull that works. That's all it is.
Pretty much, yeah. That's I guess that's well, because if they change, then you would kind of be a little more able to protect yourself. I'd assume, you'd be able to assume that they're bad now.
Yeah, but no, they will just fuck your shit up forever
if
you make them mad.
Their face. A happy little man who's just determined to ruin your life.
Pretty much. So just be cool.
Because you tried to give him clothes.
Now imagine.
Well, that's insulting. He doesn't need your charity.
That's
now
fair.
Imagine it. Take the happy little man, the happy little old man in tattered clothes, but put it on the body style of one of the invaders from that episode of The Twilight Zone, The Invaders, the little spaceman where they're like really chunky and little. That is what I want to live in my house.
Let's make it happen. Let's all concentrate on this, and we'll make a tulpa
A
to live
tulpa
in
brownie?
Adam's house. Yes.
Yep. And Adam, you can even name them. Actually, they can't be brownies anymore, right? Unless you want them to be brown with brown clothes.
Oh man, I'm gonna name it Tobias.
That's a good.
Oh
That's a good
man.
one.
Fine.
Tobias. the whole race of them.
They're just collectively named Tobias.
What's your name? It's Tobias.
Well, it's an honor, really.
That would be pretty neat. I mean, so that's a good friend you got there. That's what.
That's true. All right, should we? Do you want to like finish this up? I don't know if I'm going to get into all of these accounts, but do you want me to kind of send us off with one recent account within the past couple of years of somebody becoming pixie led?
Oh gosh, absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so this is about a woman who was reportedly pixie led during a woodland walk in County Meath, Ireland. All right, so this report was originally published by Dublin Live and recounted the experience of an anonymous woman who became inexplicably lost while traversing a patch of woods in County Meath, Ireland. And I don't know if I'm saying County Meath right, and if I'm not, just scream it into a pillow, because there's always weird Gaelic pronunciations to things. So just live with it, internet. Anyway, in her report, the woman describes being what is often referred to as pixie-led. This term, of course, refers to the belief that fairies will sometimes lead travelers astray through supernatural means. The most cited remedy for the condition in folklore is to turn one's coat inside out, which is said to break the spell, just like we talked about earlier. So, according to this woman's testimony, I just had to get my steps up for a challenge that we were doing at work. I decided to go walk somewhere nice instead of just doing laps of my estate. It was a nice day, so I said I would go for a walk in the woods. What was the worst that could happen? It was going fine. Then the path leads through two identical trees. I stepped through and put my hands on both trees. People are saying now that this was a mistake. One was really warm and the other was really wet and cold. I walked on, and I think I took a left. The main path kind of branched off to the left, and it just went nowhere. It went into a really overgrown forest, really high weeds and plants. I know it wasn't the path. There were lots of people around. It's a really popular spot, so I walked back, and I thought that this wasn't the main path, and I should have taken the other way. I took the other way, and then that similarly went nowhere. I went back to the fork to start over. I went back, and I think I tried to go back the way I came. That also led me nowhere. I walked back up the main path again, but it didn't look familiar. It was quite overcast at this point as well. I had pulled up Google Maps, and I didn't have a signal on my phone, which is not unusual for that area. I decided to keep trying paths. There were only 3, so I thought I'd eventually get somewhere. I kept walking down a path towards a really overgrown area again. At that point then, I heard a really light woman's voice. I don't know how to describe it. It was really high. She was shouting, "Over here." I thought she was probably calling to her kids or something. Then she laughed, and it was just when she laughed, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up. So this goes on for a while, but basically she gets totally lost in a seemingly impossible way. And eventually, she ends up finding her way out of the forest. So let's see. Oh, that's right. Okay, so she does. All right, so sorry about that. Okay, so eventually she finds her way out of the forest because she turns her clothes inside out. Yeah, I shit you not. She turns her clothes inside out. And when she does that, she immediately is able to find her way out. She sees the 2 trees that she passed through. Bam, she's out of the forest.
So you're telling me that all they had to do in the Blair Witch Project was turn their clothes inside out?
Maybe. Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment of that movie. Yes.
That makes sense.
I'm not going to think of that movie the same way again.
Well, I mean, honestly, though, like folkloric problems require folkloric solutions. So if you encounter like a witch, and I don't mean like some, neo-pagan on Twitter who calls himself the witch. I mean like the Blair Witch. Then you gotta dip into your knowledge of folklore to get yourself out of that mess. You can't think you're gonna get out of those woods with just a compass and a positive attitude.
Now, is the fairy's ultimate goal to have the person die, or to just be like really lost until they're just like, wow, that was a bad day? Or do they want them dead?
I mean, I guess it depends. I think it depends on the individual. So, I mean, you don't hear a lot of stories about people getting killed by fairies, but it's not impossible. I mean, there are types of fairies like the red cap, for instance, so named because of the like gratuitous levels of violence that it goes to the point where like its cap is red because it will dip its hat in people's blood after murdering the shit out of them.
Jesus.
And yeah, that's why it's called the red cap.
But wouldn't their cap turn brown in between kills?
I mean, it's always fresh blood. Fairy magic. I don't know. I don't know
Sure.
what you want me to say.
I would say that I feel like in most negative fairy experiences, it sounds like they're more into like torturing you, not necessarily like they're aimed to kill. I mean, I think that there's obviously some that want to kill you, but to me, it just sounds like some type of like game of torture. Like it's fun.
That sounds right.
Right, and I feel like that checks out, right, for a fairy. It makes
Yeah.
sense for them to want to just kind of play with you rather than, without any regard to your feelings, so much as kill you.
Unless you look at them or give them a piece of clothing or do
piss on 'em.
anything, and now they're just like, well, now I'm not playing anymore.
But still, like all they do is make your life miserable. They're not necessarily going to kill you, which again is another parallel to modern reported paranormal phenomena, where it is very unusual for anybody to ever be actually harmed, at least physically. But you do have this kind of trickster behavior constantly that just sort of it just sort of seems to exist to beguile people with no other like discernible motivation.
Okay. Are poltergeists fairies?
Sometimes.
I could see that. I could see that sometimes being fairies. That makes sense. Because
Yeah.
that seems, poltergeist activity is very much just mundane trickery for the most part.
Right. Well, that's in a
Seems.
lot of these stories. Like again, to go back to the brownie, when it becomes a Bogart, a lot of the ways that it will fuck with you are complete obvious parallels to like modern reported poltergeist activity. Just moving objects, hiding objects, breaking your shit. Just normal poltergeist stuff.
We have a local venue called Bogart's. I don't think I'm going to go there ever again after this episode.
Just be really nice. Just
The whole time.
bring them some cream and honey or biscuits or something.
There for a concert. They're like, "Why do you have a picnic basket?" I'm like, "Mind your fucking business." That's
Yeah, right. You named the place Bogarts. You tell me.
fucking weirdo.
Right?
Just start judging them. Yeah, very interesting. Very interesting. Wow. Is that the only fairy you're gonna, or the fairy encounter you're gonna share with us today?
I think that's the one we have time for.
Sure.
Honestly,
Sure. They
we'll
are
have to do
interesting.
another episode on fairies.
And well, because it is such a general topic. I mean, you really can. Like I said, we could do a whole episode just on the leprechaun. Just on mermaids.
Oh yeah, easily. Easily.
It just depends on what it is, that we're talking about. But hopefully our audience now feels a little more prepared. I know that they've probably been worried sick about encountering fairies and what they should do. So
Right. Well, now we have confirmation that turning your clothes inside out will protect you from being pixie led because it worked for this woman.
yeah, absolutely. And they didn't do it in the Blair Witch, so obviously that's what they need. That was the solution. You see what happened to them.
Yeah, they were fucked.
Well, any other final thoughts on the fairy, the fae folk? Adam, do you have anything you would like to add?
No, not really. I think it's all just fun. There's just something about the fairy world, the fae and stuff. It's fun because there's so much to learn about it.
Yeah, endless rabbit hole for sure. And Adam can give you guys a list of sketchy websites where he got his information,
Yeah, I'll
and
just send
Tobias
it
can
send you
fill
the
your whole.
search history, but make sure you have your antivirus program is up to date because it locked me out of quite a few of them.
I bet. I bet. Tobias, do you have any books that you recommend for people wanting to look more into the Fae?
Oh boy, I do. I do. A few of my favorites are Elves, Wights, and Trolls by Kveldolf Gunderson. And these are real classics here that I'm about to mention. So if you don't have these on your bookshelves and you are interested in fairies, do yourself a favor. The Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries by W.Y. Evans Wentz. This is from 1911, and it is the definitive book on fairies. Like if you only have one book on fairies, it should be the Fairy Faith in Celtic Countries. And then just one that I like, probably just because I like Yeats in general, is Irish Folk and Fairy Tales, collected and edited by W.B. Yeats. And if you like art books, and who doesn't, I have two that I would recommend highly. The first is the classic Fairies by Brian Froud and Alan Lee. And then the second is a book called Vason. And Vason is by a guy named Johann Egerkrans, and he is a fantastic artist. Of course, so is Alan Lee and Brian Froud. But you've probably seen their stuff before, and you probably haven't seen Johann Egerkrans' stuff yet, unless you happen to be into the same nerd stuff that I am. So definitely check those out. They are beautiful books, and they're worth it just to have on your shelf.
Perfect. And then, Adam, do you have a place where you want people to find you on social media or wherever?
Yeah, if anyone wants to, they can go to pinebaronsinstitute.com. I got all my stuff on there. It's been quiet lately because I'm kind of reevaluating how I want to do the website and all that, but there's links to keep everything all in one place over there.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. Well, with that being said, guys, avoid the fairies, and we will see you back here next Wednesday.